This episode of We Are Libertarians is brought to you by Audible.com. Enjoy one free audiobook courtesy of We Are Libertarians. Choose from more than 100,000 audiobook titles, including works by Ron Paul, Walter Block, Murray Rothbard, and the Cato Institute. Audible.com also has audio of radio and TV programs and audio versions of magazines and newspapers. You can get the Audible app on any mobile device or download the audio to your computer. Go to audibletrial.com/WAL or head to WeareLibertarians.com and find the link to get one free month of Audible today.
Like, hold on. It's like, just go, dude. Just...
The theme music is playing, James. What are you doing? Welcome to We Are Libertarians for this week. I am your host, Chris Spangle. Across the kitchen table from me is Greg Lenz. Greg, how are you doing?
Doing wonderful, Chris. How are you?
I'm excited for this show.
This is the greatest show we will ever do.
We've had James on twice, and you can find past James Nease experiences. One where he explains how to dumpster dive, and then there was another one where he ran for office and was being interviewed as a serious candidate. You ran for... James Nease joins us. I wish I had... Here, I think I have a clapping on my little board now. There we go. James Nease, everybody. Welcome to the show. You can't hear that because we're not that high-tech yet.
I keep it at 150 all the time, 300, if you want to keep it real like that.
Speak into the mic, by the way. As close as you can get.
I forget that this show doesn't have like super awesome mics, and I have to hold it to my face like a robotic penis to get things to come out. So, hey, what up, people?
I don't know how James managed to get himself here in so many... I mean that in every way. But mostly, you set us up with a Twitch account, which is what? Explain what a Twitch account is.
A Twitch account is where... if you want to see like what we're doing right now and hear it live without having to just listen to it on like some sort of podcasting thing, you can log on Twitch and you can actually see what we're doing here at any given time. You can see Chris's tie-dye shirt. You can see Greg being an alcoholic. You can you can check me out here in my like hipster hat. I mean,
I was gonna say, how's the Mumford and Sons tour doing?
I'm keeping it great. Like I'm third base. If the other two bass players somehow die, like that is me. I'm getting all the chicks.
That's right.
See, the best part is how ridiculous the three of us look independently. I'm wearing a tie-dye T-shirt and basketball shorts. James looks like he is straight out of Broad Ripple, which is the local hipster enclave.
Sobro.
Yeah.
He's from Sobro.
I will see you under the bridge, bro. If we do heavy things under that bridge.
The way that I have always described James is if 4chan were a human being, that would be James Nease.
And he means that in the best way possible.
Oh yeah. You're not misogynistic and racist as far as I can tell.
Only thing I hate is Gamergate, bro.
I don't understand what that means.
I don't know what Gamergate is.
Yeah.
Harry said something about it. I don't know.
Harry wants to be relevant. It's like, let me talk about stuff.
We have a feud starting.
Nerd battle.
That wants to get
battle.
on Reddit. Got that Reddit life going, but it's like we all know I'm the OG nerd. Like there's no debating it. Like if you want rap beef, I'm here, dude. Like come down to the studio, man.
Oh man. Harry, by the way, says smooth 15 frames per second, and also said, "Oh, look, he put on his nice tie-dye." You know what, Harry? I don't like your attitude. So
there's only so much I can do with a Macintosh, Harry. Look at it.
That's a good point.
Look at it. It's over here. You can probably see it in the camera. Chris has got this like socialist like internet running through here. It's like slower than like syrup.
I really do. Yeah, try not to bang the table too much there. What is Kalishnikov, which was the prime minister that came and banged his shoe.
It's like Khrushchev.
Khrushchev, that's it. Yes. Yeah. The internet here is run through. It's not like Bright House or Comcast or anything good. It's through the apartment complex, and
it's really an intranet,
right? Yeah, and so they've blocked Facebook. We're not allowed to go on Sexton Properties Facebook accounts. Just Edward Rose. So. I like where I live, but I don't like the internet speeds that I get. I get 8 megabits per second. I pay for 25. So
It's like you have net neutrality before it's even been implemented yet.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It is a luxury apartment. Those of you tuning into Twitch can see that it's open concept. And James, when you drove in your 1990 Lexus or whatever you're driving,
Mercedes Saddam edition.
yeah, Saddam edition, you didn't feel any speed bumps. No speed bumps.
I saw the cop and I kind of ducked him. You know what I mean? It's like, let me just slow down a bit as I roll through here.
Yeah, that's a good idea because that cop is super paranoid.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
Dude, I rolled up.
Like checking my plates. Paranoid.
I rolled up in a Mercedes, like going like 50 with like Bone Thugs and Harmony playing. Like, I'm just asking, dude. It's like, I'm going to get the K9 out here like really quick, dude.
Now, what are you up to? Because last time we talked, you were going to, I don't know, Burning Man or whatever you people do, and you were going to live off the land or the salt flats or something, and you were going to hang out at Skid Row. Did you ever? I don't know if you took that trip, but now you come here. You have shorter hair. You're a father. You have a job at a bank, no less, or a mortgage company or something financial and important. I mean, you're doing really well for yourself. You're doing better than Greg and I.
Life's hard, bro. It gets harder, man. No, I did that. I still do that. Like, it's just I had to get my hair cut because if I'm trying to sell you like some like servers or like some software and like you saw me roll up with like hair down to like my ass essentially, like, hey, right, bro, you want Microsoft Office? I got it. You know, that's not gonna work.
Let me get in my trunk. I've got this CD.
Why isn't the sticker reflective? It's really weird.
So I did that. We went to Jacksonville, Florida. We road trip down there. I was in Georgia during that fire when it was like a national forest was on fire. I stopped for a selfie, like, you know, forest on fire, like level 3, like catastrophe in Georgia. Better pop a selfie. Like, I'm about that.
What would Smokey the Bear's millennial nephew do?
Probably cry, dude, because I went straight to Jacksonville. Then when we got to Jacksonville, we ran out of money, and like, you know. So what does James Nease do when you run out of money? That's the dumpster diving that we had to do.
Right.
So it's like, let me just dig in there for a little bit, like it's some leftover chicken. Like, you got to do what you got to do, you know? So spanging around for some money. We found some cameras on the beach that were like, people lose stuff all the time on the beach. So we combed the beach and pawned it, you know. It's
people lost their cameras, and he found them.
you do what you have to do. I'm not getting stuck in Jacksonville. Like, Florida is the armpit of the United States.
It's true.
Like, and if there's any crazy things, like dude smoked meth, ran around naked, like punched a cop, fucked a taco, you know, that's from Florida. That's all from Florida.
Well-known taco fuckers down there in Florida, that's for sure. Should we put like a not safe for work tag on this Twitch thing? Are we going to get banned?
I doubt it.
All right, whatever.
No, we keep it non for safe. I mean, like, look at all the people that are in Florida. You got the crazy like bath salt eating like zombies. You got Debbie Wasserman like punching 8-pound babies all day, every day.
She hit a baby.
She hit a baby.
She hit it till it dead.
That's news to Rand Paul.
You got Marco Rubio, who's like, I don't know, like some sort of parallel Mexican. He's like, I'm from Cuba, but let me hate on like these borders, bro.
What does a parallel Mexican even mean? I don't know why that's so funny, but I think it's because Greg is losing his mind right now. I'm crying.
I'm thinking of like a parallel universe Mexican.
Oh,
That's kind of what it is. It's like, he's from Cuba, but like I see him all the time, like with the border stuff. Like, I'm gonna close these borders to keep these other Mexicans out. He's like a bizarroe world Mexican. That's just like,
he's a self-hating Mexican.
Oh my
That's
God.
not Mexican at all.
I mean, what is Cuba really? It's.
Is he Mexican even? Isn't he like?
He's Cuban.
Oh, okay.
He's
All
Cuban.
right. I thought that was
Like
Ted
the
Cruz.
sandwich.
Like that sandwich. Very nice.
But
Oh,
yeah,
Joe's gonna be so
I've
mad.
been doing that.
Sorry, Joe. How bad are you?
Oh, man. So I've been doing that. I've been in Frankfurt doing libertarian stuff in Frankfurt. Like, I threw in like an application. I'm gonna run for judge to keep it 300 there as well.
Are you really?
Because they apparently, like in this town, you don't need a law degree to be a judge. And
Nice.
like I'm going to dismiss so much stuff. Like,
Oh yeah.
they'll call me dismissal. You know, what I mean? Like target, boom. Like,
Yep.
Like what? You drunk? Boom, dismiss it. You know. So
No, you weren't.
so I'm going to keep it. You know, I'm basically just doing it like so I can wear a black robe like a wizard, dude.
Yeah.
You know, but
Now you keep saying keep it 300. What does that mean?
I don't know, but I've heard like Young Jeezy say it at least 4 times, at least 3 interviews.
Now,
so.
Young Jeezy, which Epicurean philosopher is he?
I think he's
Is that Jay-Z?
I think
that...
he's an existentialist from like Hotlanta.
Okay, all right.
Oh, I gotcha. The Hotlanta School of Philosophy.
That's I'm shouting that out to, you know,
Luda?
Brett, steal your job, Bittner.
I did laugh. For those who don't know, Brett Bittner, I left the Advocates for Self-Government, and those are the quiz people. And Brett took my job at the Advocates in the Englehart group. And James said he can't wait for me to leave so Brett can get a job at Bob and Tom.
You know that's how it's gonna go, dude. It's like this dude just rolls in. That's what Southerners do. They just kind of creep up to the north and just take all your jobs, dude. That's who we should really be building like a fence around. Like as soon as you hit Nashville, you got to keep those Southerners out because they will rise again and they'll rise plenty. And it's just like keep them where they need to be. Mississippi, okay.
Oh my!
I mean,
I told you this is gonna be the best one we've ever done.
I would declare war on the South again. Like I ain't playing, dude. It's like anytime. It's like if I see Mississippi run its mouth one more time, I swear
We're gonna build a fence, bro.
Now, how does Mississippi run its mouth?
Mississippi is like the 50th in the nation for like IQ or something like that. Like if anyone's bad at math, it's Mississippi.
Something like that. Think
it's probably 52nd. It probably ranks below like territories. Like there's people in Samoa that can't even speak English or like do anything. They're tribal, but Mississippi ranks below them in terms of like, you know, how to solve math problems.
What almanac did you get this from, by the way?
Wikipedia.
Okay, all right.
So, you know, I'm just sitting there thinking like Mississippi does crazy things like that. Then you get like places like Missouri that's just like I'm gonna hit you with a face in the baton or whatever. Then you get places like what is it, like Maryland? Like,
Maryland, yes,
Maryland,
that's correct. Maryland,
the 308 or whatever the area code is. I only know that from a Ludacris song. So
Petey Pablo, raise him up. That's how I know my geography.
That's right.
So you know, I just listened to you know, how bad these states are, like what comes out of there, what comes out of these states, and like literally, I think any state that's below Tennessee just deserves to be. I ain't gonna say nuked because I'm not a war hawk like that, but at least occupied.
What do you mean? How do you feel about liberated?
You can't liberate people that aren't people.
So Southerners aren't people.
They are not people.
They're citizens. They're not people.
They're not even citizens. Like it's just it's cut and dry. Like, you know, people in the South, and senators or whoever, whatever demographic group you want to like put in there, they're meat bags.
Oh my god!
Well, they did commit treason.
Tom Cotton. Like,
Tom Cotton.
That's right.
Yeah, Tom Cotton. He's from like some backwater Arkansas.
Yeah, Arkansas. He
Like-
called out the Iranian president yesterday and got quite personal.
That's the same state that Jim Duggar lives in. You know what I mean? Like that's who you associate with.
Let's
that you're
not talk about
Republican.
Hacksaw. There will be no bashing of Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
That's who he hangs with. Like every Republican meeting, it's like who's going to show up? It's like bam, it's Jim Duggar with his wife
And Chuck Norris.
I guess whoever lives in that forsaken state.
Here comes Mike Huckabee again.
It used to be Bruce Jenner, but now he's persona non grata.
How funny is it that Bruce Jenner is like the hero, and then he says, "Well, yeah, I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican."
How dare you?
God, talk about intolerance, man! If you go back and watch that interview with Diane Sawyer, it is so funny to hear the pause. A Republican.
Say that again.
I'm going to give you my view of what Republicans might be. They're all hateful people. They might be shocked and horrified by that. I mean, it just was so,
Such a Diane Sawyer thing to do as well.
and the hate that he's gotten for being a Republican. It's just, it's louder than the the trans thing.
And it was well known, like when Marco Rubio gave a speech to commemorate something at the Reagan Library a couple years ago, and on Sean Hannity's roundtable was Bruce Jenner pre-transition. And so, like, it's well established. He's part of the Fox News like harem to pull from, the token celebrity conservative. And so I don't know why she would not have known that.
Wouldn't you hate women's choice too if you lived in that house? I mean, straight up. Like,
To be fair, I don't know. Did he or any of the? Okay, so the two youngest are his.
Yeah, Kylie and Kendall Jenner.
But none of the Kardashians are his.
I mean, why would you adopt that? Anyway, if I would have seen that like ahead of time, like some sort of sage Nostradamus like vision, I would have been like,
I'm out.
It's like, you know what?
I like that James gets Nostradamus like powers, and he doesn't use it to cure cancer or AIDS. He uses it to free mankind from sex slavery. He uses it to find out if Bruce Jenner would be a good stepfather to the Kardashians.
I mean, even his like daughters are kind of like, it's like who you let your daughter hang out with? Tyga? Like, really? Like, you know, really? Come on, Greg, Tyga. Like,
Who's Tyga?
Come on, bro.
Like, right.
Should I know Tyga?
You should know Tyga. Tyga's hot right now.
Tyga
Tyga is selling so hot on the streets.
There's more people named Tiger than Tiger Woods. I mean, you got
Better success too.
But you know, she
That was a
hung out
golf
with-
joke for you.
There we go.
She hung out with his daughters hung out with Tyga, and she had that like whatever lace like corset thing. And she's like 17, you know what I mean? So like you feel weird popping a boner sometimes. It's like I see what you're doing, you know what I mean? But like in at least like 12 states, I can't do this, especially California. And it's just like, come on, like, why?
Oh, that's so
God.
beautiful. It's
like poetry.
You're a linguist, is what you are.
Cunning link.
We're taking this show to like NC-17 really quick.
Yeah.
And we're not even close.
And thank God Gina's not here.
I know
Yeah.
Gina takes us places where the FCC actually gets nervous.
But no, it's for Bruce Jenner. Like I don't know if it's like a stunt or not, because like his whole life's kind of been like televised. I mean, I get it. He was like some athlete in some sport no one cares about, but it's like
The Olympics.
The triathlon.
One of the most popular sports in mankind's history.
you name
He's OG Olympian.
you name one American that cares about a triathlon besides people trying to be pretentious at the bar. Like one American,
That's a good point.
zero. Because
Right.
you know what America cares about? Football. Football.
Whoa, come down.
In real football, not the one
Yeah.
where you don't use your hands.
Real steroid jacking, gay hating, America loving football.
Freedom.
Now, are you a sports fan, James?
I like to watch sports because I like to watch people like squirm. I'm one of those people that's like, you know, like it's like a Colts game, so I'll pop on a Brady jersey and like walk down, you know, mass out. I'd be like, what? Like what? 4 rings, baby. What? I'm that type of sports fan.
Again, 4chan personified.
He's a troll.
Yeah.
He's a sports troll.
If you go to our Facebook page, you'll see a picture of James, because I know everybody wants to see what James looks like. So,
I know. I'm
sort of like a young, good-looking Tiny Tim.
I'm VIP. Like I seen the list of like guest correspondents on this show, and like my name's in gold, so I just assume I'm VIP. I mean, everybody else's name's grayed out besides like 4 people. So
And Joe's not even on there.
yeah, like yeah.
Now listen, I put Joe on everything. I didn't get to a couple
He doesn't
things.
have an HB1.
No.
He doesn't have an HB1. He
He's
can't.
a freaking admin on the website.
But he's
Over
not
there
listed
crying.
as a guest contributor.
No, because he's on the actual list. He's not a guest
I'm
contributor.
just stirring the pot after
he
the discussion this
forced me.
week.
He forced me to put him on the regular contributor list.
Whoa. You seem quite okay with it.
Joe and I are at odds. I'm not gonna lie.
You guys are
have
having a
Mex-
kerfluffle.
We're having a little Mexican standoff.
He's a parallel Mexican standoff, if you will.
He's just mad because I said his middle name was Taquito.
Oh God!
we give each other such a hard time in the chat. It's not even funny. But poor Joe's defenseless because it never makes you the stuff that they say about us never makes it on here. It's just the stuff we say about Joe.
No.
Oh, we sound
Good
like
old Joseph Esteban Torito. El Acapulco.
Doritos is not a middle name.
Well, that's enough Mexican hate.
Yeah.
So, I want to hear James Nease's thoughts on Baltimore. Have you followed Baltimore? You need me to?
Yeah, why don't
set
you
it up.
fill in the gaps? Because we're not going to get the news facts out of James, I don't think, but...
So, 25-year-old kid with an arrest record named Freddie Gray is standing in Baltimore, in a neighborhood in Baltimore called, I think it's Gilmore Heights or Gilmore something.
Yeah, so that's pretty gangster.
It's the poorest neighborhood of the 6th poorest city in the United States. 50% of 50% unemployment, 60% high school dropout rate. Average median income in that area in all of Baltimore is $24,000, which is really, really, really low in a major urban city. And so he's standing out there. He sees 2 police look at him, makes eye contact, takes off running. Cops.
Always a good strategy.
Yeah, well, he'd been arrested twice before. So the cops chase after him. They see what they think is a switchblade, I think, hooked to the inside of his inner leg. And so they take him down, put the knee in the back. Someone, I haven't confirmed this, but it was that he was tased. But that was in the actual
the table thing, by the way.
Oh, sorry. He was in, or the investigation. It was sealed, but then it got leaked this week that someone said he was tased, or one of the eyewitnesses. So they put him in the back of a paddy wagon for all intents and purposes. They don't follow protocol by seat belting him in. That was a new standard that I guess hadn't been made clear, and whoever the 2 cops. Sergeant was or lieutenant didn't gave them sort of leeway on that, so they didn't secure him. They have 3 stops to make. The first stop, the other prisoner said he was like banging around and going crazy, trying to possibly injure himself, but that was contradicted by another person in that wagon. So then they put the what are they? The restraints around your ankles, and you have to hold a bar inside the back of this thing to like stay secure since you're not strapped in.
Right.
And then that continues on. At the second stop, they actually get out, and I'm having a little brain fart right now, but I'm pretty sure they try to secure him, but they don't follow protocol. And they have in that area, there are things called rough rides that the cops have gotten in a lot of trouble for, been fined over $6 million for it since 2011.
Also known as nickel rides.
Yep. And basically, by the time he gets out of the second stop, when they arrive at the third stop, he is in bad, bad, bad shape, and they have to take him to the hospital where they perform a surgery. He falls into a coma and dies, and what triggered it was 80% of his spine had been severed.
Wow.
Now, something that just came out today in the investigation was that the wound that's on the back of his neck and spine is in the shape of a bolt that's in the back of the wagon. It fits. It's a similar size and entrance. Shape. And so, but that's, you don't know how did it get hit, pushed into that.
Right.
25-year-old kid. And what's shocking to me, but I came to find out today, is that it is you have reasonable suspicion for a police officer if you're in a high crime area if someone just runs from you. That was a Supreme Court decision in 2000. It was a 5-4 decision when Rehnquist was still Chief Justice.
Well, that seems a little racist.
I know, and if you're in
a
high crime area and the person running is enough to give the cop reasonable suspicion to pursue them. And I just thought that was absolutely crazy and BS.
Yeah. Thoughts on that?
I mean, you want my thoughts on the riots, or my thoughts on
We'll start with the cops and then go to the riots, the reaction.
I mean, everybody that's in a poor crime area is going to probably run from the police anyway. It's not because they actually did anything wrong. It's there might be a list of juvenile offenses that probably had nothing to matter. Freddie Gray's record was basically dealing narcotics, which is basically I had a dime bag on me. So he had a rap record, 15, 16 deep, charges that were just basically I got caught with weed. So I would assume that when he saw police rolling up, that it was whatever went through his mind. He might just get arrested again, so he's going to flee or attempt to flee. It's not uncommon. A lot of people flee. Black people don't just flee. White people flee all the time. You'll see it in the news. You just don't. It's not made a big deal about it. You never see a white guy.
Right, because there's the chance that you might get away.
Yeah, I mean, people run. It's not an epidemic. I mean, the guy that's in the $350,000 house, he's not going to run. Whatever. I can afford a lawyer. A lot of these people can't afford a lawyer, so when they get arrested, there's nothing for them to do. They know they're going to get railroaded straight into the system. So they're going to take their chances to run, and that's not an epidemic of like race, like they're trying to make it out to be. Like, well, it's like this or this or this. It's an epidemic problem with like poor communities, like anybody that has like a rough time with police, and that's usually a poor community situation.
I'm not one of these people who says I think there's a lot of conservatives who look at this and want to make it a black thing, and then try and say something else like it's not. There really is a racial undertone to a lot of what Fox News is saying. But I also think on the token side, on the other side, there's not enough acknowledgement that this goes on in all underprivileged communities. I mean, if you were poor in this country, you were getting completely fucked by the justice system.
Without question.
No matter what your color, you are absolutely up shit creek without a paddle. And you have no recourse, even if the person you're up against has a $5,000 lawyer and you've got the public defender, or,
You've got a power-hungry prosecuting attorney that cannot wait to, put you in jail and boost his, his record and run for office,
or a judge who is just as bad. So I think we do a disservice to reforming the system when we bring. There is a racial aspect to it because it is black neighborhoods. Obviously,
did you see the video of? What was it like? This black male went up to like Geraldo, or whatever. I don't know parallel Mexican names, but he went up to Geraldo, and he was just like, "How come you're not filming like the peaceful protest? Why weren't you here like a week before the peaceful protest? Why are you only here when people are destroying stuff?" And like the media does like a really good job of when it wants to show like a riot that's primarily black to show all the negative things: the CVS burning, the cars getting flipped over, the people getting hit in the face, the tear gas. But when it's usually like a riot that's usually a mostly white riot, it's usually like a college football game
after a stupid college victory loss, and
it's swept under the rug.
Right.
But the media is running on a narrative, and like you'll see it when you describe it. Like they'll talk about all these protesters in general, not just like a few people that are rioting, because the people that are busting in the stores and looting, those are opportunists. These are people that know the police are kind of busy locked in chain trying to control a protest, that they're going to bust out windows and take stuff. That's in any riot, white or black, whatever.
And I think it makes you an absolute moron if you can't see the difference between the two.
Yeah.
Like there is this thread that goes through Facebook discussions, and let's be honest, Facebook is a powerful discussion platform, and where most people get their ideas in this day and age, where protesters, those aren't protesters. Those are just black people stealing things.
Yeah.
I mean, that is basically the undertone of what is said by 50% of the people in this country. And you just look like a complete moron if you say that. Because
and then it's the cops are great American heroes.
I like the code words to use. Like the media will never say, like they want to say the N-word, but they can't. So it's thugs, it's animals, it's monsters, it's
criminals.
Beasts. It's like, I know what you want to say, you just can't say it because it's not politically correct.
Well, city councilman said it on CNN this week.
Explain that. I didn't catch that.
You didn't watch that. So he was on CNN. He was a city councilman in Baltimore, and he was so frustrated with the terminology around it, he ended up saying the N-word live on air. Just say what you want to call him.
Yeah, because they were saying everything. It's like, because
they'll use any descriptive term.
It's like anything but that one term, and it's like you can tell by like how these people are getting frustrated because they want to say it but they can't.
But
and it's
is that really fair though? Because in the view of the media, they are lawless and out of control, and it has nothing to do with their race. It is just that these people are not respecting the statist authorities. And so, therefore, they need to. They're out of control. They're wild. They're crazy. And it's not necessarily a race thing. It's that they're going against what the state wishes.
But that's what the media is going to try to paint it as. The media is going to attempt at any time to make it more of like a racial issue. That's why it's so focused on that, but it's not focused on other riots. That's why it wasn't focused on the peaceful protest. That's why it wasn't focused on the police brutality, because police brutality gets swept under the rug all the time. So it's just like, they'll sweep it under the rug. Okay, there's a protest. Some black kid got gunned down. We'll sweep it under the rug. But the moment it starts to gain momentum, like protest, or it goes viral, then the media jumps on it and be like, oh, this is just a case of like race baiting, and the Obama administration does this. And
well, that's because
Fox.
Yeah, but that's because that's how media works. Let me tell you, as a person who has spent his entire career working with and around and for media, it is the people who desperately want to be popular in life. Now, I'm not saying anything about my current employer. I'm saying that when you come in,
fired.
No, when I come in contact with local TV news personalities, you just go, these are the people who were the best looking people in their high school. Popularity is high on their incentive list. That's why they went into a job. And so it isn't about, it is really like, once the story becomes, and it builds momentum, and we might get eyeballs on this, because there's a trend where, my job is posting things that are popular, that are trending, and so if something looks like it's going to be popular, I want to post it because I want those hits for my site too.
Yeah.
And so that really, to me, is much more, I'm not disagreeing with you. There is a very serious question that ought to be answered by the news czars of this day and age. Is why do you go wall to wall on a 24-hour riot in Baltimore, but you don't in
Kentucky?
In
like
Kentucky,
after Kentucky lost
after
the
Kentucky
national
lost.
championship. Yeah.
What is the aspect there? And I think the documentary, The House I Live In, which everybody needs to go to watch, that documentary on Netflix, talks about the idea that it is a comprehensive look at the drug war and the incentives that are created and how we've structured the criminal justice system, policing in this country, and media's attitudes towards criminals and drug users. And the bottom 10% of this population has no ability to make a legal living for the most part, because we've destroyed our economy for many different reasons, but mostly because we've moved away from free markets. And so in many places, like in the middle of Detroit, for instance, where they focus, it is the drug trade. That's how you're going to feed your family. And so, it's not about legal or illegal. It's about eating or not eating and feeding your family. And the industry that is in your area is selling drugs. And then there's another industry, the criminal justice industry, the policing industry, the
security state
apparatus, the prison industry, where they build a certain number of beds, they build it into their budgets.
It's got to fill them.
They got to fill them. The state needs bodies, man. And so how do you take care of that bottom 10% of population that doesn't have employment? What do you do with them? Well, you've got to put them somewhere. And so let's lock them up. Let's put them in jail. And it's not just a black inner city thing. It's a rural white thing. The number one growing trend of drug users is middle-aged white females in the rural area with prescription pills and now heroin. Like here in Indiana, Scott County has an enormous HIV outbreak.
And it's it's a state of emergency. Like the governor's declared it a state of emergency.
250 people in the last couple of months have developed HIV because they've been sharing needles in this county. Yes, go get tested, Greg. But 200 people in a county that probably has 20,000 people
max,
very small county, rural county, a huge emergency, to the point that Mike Pence, who we've covered extensively as the Christian conservative, has allowed needle drives.
Yeah, he authorized. It's a bill before the House, but it's essentially emergency funds to get clean needles down there just to get this thing under control before
they've let these like surrounding counties rot. Like if you're in Indianapolis and you're in Hamilton County, a lot of money that comes through like the state legislature actually gets funneled through Hamilton County because there's favorite counties in Indiana,
right?
And if you're in like a county like Knox County or Clinton County or any of these Monroe County, any of these counties that don't really have like a huge city that has a huge infrastructure, there's no economy there. Like up in Frankfurt where I'm at, there's a couple factories. I mean, like our only restaurant choices, it's a large 22,000 citizen city, but the only restaurants there are is McDonald's, Taco Bell, Subway.
Yeah.
There's no real commerce there. So the factories that are built there, like Wabash and whatever, the way our county tax system works in Indiana is like where you live, you get taxed on. So there's no incentive for these cities to actually build infrastructure there because the taxes go back to the county anyway, depending on where the worker goes.
Right.
So you have like hundreds of people, like 5 o'clock in the morning, you get on 39, you can watch people funnel by the hundreds. I mean, like 2 hours worth of cars down 39 to go to Lebanon or go to Crawfordsville or go to Tippecanoe County just to go work in a factory because that's the only place these jobs are. So if you're stuck in town, let's say I have a criminal record, I don't have a license, there's nothing for me to do in this town. There's no prospect. So I'm going to slang dope, I'm going to get in trouble because there's nothing for me to do.
Right.
And that's a symptom in all these counties in Indiana because they funnel most of the economic weight here. Like I think Mike Pence goes to China to be like, I want to attract new businesses in China. Well, what are you building? They're building like 20-something new Krogers, but those are part-time 14-hour a week to 16-hour week jobs at like $8 an hour. That's not good. Then you have these staffing companies that we popped up hundreds of staffing, pro staffing, staffing resources, Spartan staffing. So all the jobs that are being built that are above minimum wage and they're like $10 to $12 an hour are all temporary. They're all jobs that can be filled by anybody at any given time. All you have to be able to do is lift 20 pounds. Mm-hmm. So you get all these crummy temporary jobs that give no benefits. They're just basically a flat wage, and your check's about $363 a week, and there's no real economy here. It's all based on this artificial temporary thing that fades just as fast as it was here. So you have this county is like the one with the heroin problem. There's nothing to do. Like, you know, if I got nothing to do besides work, 10 hours a week at Wendy's, what am I going to do? I'm smoke dope.
Yeah, and you can supplement your income while you're drawing government benefits. And so you have to go back and listen to episode 91 with Rachel's story. I mean, she's very much a victim of this, and it's not a racial thing. Rachel was white. And went to jail for 16 years and ended up dying in a private prison system that failed her here in Indiana. So check out episode 91 just to kind of refer back to something we've covered extensively. And so how do we become okay with this? The way that we become okay with this entire system is you have to demonize somebody. And so the documentary The House I Live In on Netflix, it goes through the entire cycle of how Nazi Germany softened the German people to accept the Holocaust, or at least not say anything about the Holocaust or turn away. And we talked about that in episode 91, where there were 100 people who came into contact with Woody's daughter and knew that she was dying, and one person out of 100 said something anonymously.
Yeah.
In my life, there are situations where there are hundreds of people coming into contact with an individual and a family, and it's a horrible situation. People are being hurt, and no one does shit, and nobody says anything because self-interest. Self-interest is not to rock the boat. It is not to go against the state. The media has that same mentality. Like I said, the people who are making news decisions are the people that grew up going, I want to be in the in crowd. I want to get invited. Think about your local TV news personality. They want to be in the in crowd. They want to get invited on the local morning show. They want to get invited to host the local charity benefit. They want to hang out with the other local celebrities. They want to play on the local Jeopardy games on your 2 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon on the UHF channel. I mean, they're social climbers by and large. And so what does it profit? What is the incentive for, especially in like a city like Indianapolis, where the 50th media market, we're a stepping stone to Dallas or Washington or New York or Chicago. And so if you're a local news personality, you don't want the reputation here of being difficult and hassling the police chief. So what do? We've talked about this time and time again. The local news person goes and reads the reports from the criminal docket that day, the police scanners, and they report things as the police tell them it went. There's very little bias. And so your local TV news reporter goes on to work for the network, and they become the CNN reporter, and they become the CNN anchor. The farm system in news is broken, and it doesn't incentivize these journalists, and they don't have the personality by and large to go after the bad guys unless we as citizens create an environment where we want that, where we want cops to be gone after for these kind of abuses. We've seen in cases like Dorner in L.A., the cop killer, where or some of the other incidents where it is pro-police bias. Well, I'm getting the feeling and the sense now that is shifting, where it is now people are going, they're pushing back, the reporters are pushing back on the cops pushing back on experts on cable news, saying, "What's the deal? What is the deal?
Why do you keep killing?" And the thing is, whether you agree with whatever side you come down on, Freddie Gray is an innocent person that died. He was never given his day in court.
Right.
So, given that we're already innocent until proven guilty within our court system, even though that's probably debatable, but he dies an innocent man, and there will be little recourse against the 6 police officers that were in charge of his.
That's
life.
That's how broad in scope that, because it gives them qualified immunity in the legal system. That's for any time in a pursuit of a suspect, they have like a long range of latitude what they can do up into including killing you.
Yeah.
So it's like even if he dies, it's hard for any like defense attorney to say like, well, it was improper death, because the prosecutor, the police unions, the officer superiors will say this is in line with our protocol. And as long as the protocol says they're legally allowed to kill you, you have such latitude with how you can defend yourself with that.
Well, yeah.
So unless there's like some way, like it's hard to get them criminally, you'd have to get them civilly to make them hurt. And that's hard when they have that qualified immunity. You can't take a cop to court and be like, you choked out my son for no reason. I'm going to sue you for it, because there's no way they can get there.
And that's where the reform has to come. The reform has to come with the legal code. If it doesn't, there's no shot.
I was an advocate for Woody to kind of help him figure out what lawyer he ought to get, how his case ought to be prosecuted or moving forward. And there are so many people, and still continue to be so many people in Woody's life, that want to shame him for going after a settlement. Going after a civil rights action, going after liability claims, and punishing the doctors who were negligent and caused his daughter's death. The people who were not innocent by any stretch of the imagination, but the bias is that, why do you want to hurt that good doctor? Well, that good doctor killed my daughter, and the only way to make these pigs that don't give a shit about human life to realize that they've done something wrong, and for the system to realize that there's something wrong, and for me to get headlines, because trust me, Woody spent a lot of time going to every TV reporter he possibly could for the longest time, and nobody would talk to him, and they still continue to not really talk to him. And they don't really understand the case because it took us 2 hours to break down the story. He can't get media unless there is some sort of court action, because then the reporter can read the court document, the government statement, and understand what happened and took place. And the legislature will then pay attention, because all of a sudden they're paying out civil rights violations to this person to the tune of who knows how much. Well, what's that about? So the way to get the system to listen is to punish the taxpayer twice.
Yeah.
Even
though that
insane.
absolutely stinks.
Yeah, and he's not doing it for the money. He's doing it because I'm the one who talked him into it.
Yeah.
Because I said the only way you're going to get these assholes to listen to you and take you seriously is if you file a civil rights suit.
Yeah.
They don't care though. Like if you sue them, a lot of things like doctors, they're bonded. They have insurance. They have malpractice insurance. You're not hurting him. Like you sue him in court, you win. That's not coming out of his like Lexus. That's not coming out of his like 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. That's not coming out of his like retirement fund. That's coming out of the insurance that he paid for to cover you. The same with the government. You sue the government, like who cares? You sued the police department. Like I'm taking out like the state funds that are set aside for this exact same thing. It's like, I could be a police officer. I can wreck you as much as I want to, and I'm not going to have to pay. The city will pay, but the city doesn't care because they'll just raise taxes to get the money back if they really need to. It's not their money.
Yeah, but the point is bad headlines and bad press. And it creates an environment where you are punishing a group of people who did wrong in the press and getting other people to pay attention to what your cause is.
I think people really don't care about bad press. Like they really don't. It's like you can have as much bad headlines as you want to. Like that mayor in Baltimore that's got like 10 headlines on her. It's just like you called them thugs. You let it go on. She doesn't care because she knows that even if it's bad, people forget really easily. Like, that's not going to carry over to the election. She'll still probably get reelected. She can say the most damnedest thing she wants to. You can have mayors in D.C. snorting cocaine, whatever. They get
Well, that was
reelected.
like the 80s. And Marion Barry, man. Marion Barry was a survivor.
But that's the point. Like, people don't care after a certain time, and they feign rage. There's a lot of people that feign rage.
Of course. That's all Twitter is. And that's all social media is fake outrage.
One like, one pray. The armchair activist.
But you know what? That in this day and age is so much more powerful than the bad headlines that Marion Barry got. You can destroy somebody in this day and age. We have digital lynch mobs.
Like, right now, Mike Pence is the perfect example of this. Mike Pence very likely is going to get primaried, and it's a coin toss whether he's going to win a primary and still be governor. The other thing is, even if he doesn't, that primary may be so brutal, he's going to have to run against John Gregg, and John Gregg could beat him easily.
But that's not one error. Like, there's a lot of like huge errors that people make. The issue with Mike Pence is he's made like a string of errors consistently throughout his entire tenure as governor. So it's easy to primary somebody that continues to fuck up and will fuck up again and again and again than someone says, like, oops, I made one mistake. We're human, we all make mistakes.
But if you look at police across the United States as a group, they have made mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake to the point that now even the most fundamental great Americans are starting to say, why are the police acting like this, and why are we allowing it?
But there's the statement, not all cops are bad. That's going to permeate through a lot of people's minds. Well,
They aren't all bad.
my grandpa's a cop.
But it's true.
Not every cop is bad.
No, not every cop is bad.
Joe today talked
yesterday.
to Sheriff Brad Rogers up in
Elkhart
County. Brad Rogers is not a bad cop.
I always issue it like this. I would look like Brad Rogers in the face. I'm like, if I go 55 and 50, you're going to give me a ticket. And yeah, you're a bad cop. You're stopping me from doing what I want to do. But that's not a
bad cop.
You're stopping me, man.
But that's not a bad
that's
cop.
That's revenue generation.
That's not a bad cop because we have created a system where we've authorized them to enforce the law. Mm-hmm. He is doing his job. But these individuals did not do their job. They did not follow protocol. Clearly, that's been established. That's a bad cop.
But do you see, like, my argument there is, like, where if someone stops you, you're a bad cop.
No.
There's a lot of people that think that. This dude's a bad cop because this dude gave me a ticket. This dude's a piece of shit because he arrested me for being drunk in public. There's a lot of people that think that, and that's a permeating culture within.
Yeah, but that's not a bad cop.
But that's how people think. It doesn't matter if that's not or is not a bad cop. That's how people are going to think. And if the way people think is much more powerful than what it really is.
For sure, but the majority don't think that.
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot. And I can find you anybody in town. Like, I can find a good cop that has no record of abuse on his record, and I can find you 100 people that dude's hauled in for Republican talks that say that dude's a faggot.
Okay,
a clinical term, by the way.
but
No, literally, that's what they'll say.
It's going to depend on what your qualification is or what your condition is for someone being a bad cop. For me, it would be not doing their job to the letter of the law because they're trusted with a monopoly on force, and so because you are trusted with a monopoly on force, you don't have the luxury of ever acting outside the bounds of what you're authorized to do.
But I stated, like, America is a place full of, like, narcissistic individuals that are very self-interest, very into me. If it harms me, then it's something that's negative. So even if it's like the cop is good, and it's like in terms of the letter of the law, he has no marks, no demerits or whatever. People are so self-centered and self-focused that if a cop did something to somebody, even though it was legitimate, they're going to harbor some ill will toward that thing because they stopped them from doing what they want to do. And you can't stop that culture. So when that permeates through everything, even like in the cops, like they can't do no wrong. So you have a cop that, barrels down somebody, like in South Carolina, just guns the person down. It's just people always think in self-interest. Even the cops think in self-interest. Even the unions think in self-interest. So they always default to this, I'm going to protect myself no matter what, even if it is smearing the shit out of anybody else.
And I don't debate. My point though is that
he's also making the Maya argument, which is the existence of the government is violence, it's force, and so by buying into a system, you cease to be a good person because you are buying into a system of inherent force and violence.
Yeah, you are, and that is definitely one way to look at it, and it is a valid way to look at it. I'm just saying that I don't believe that way of looking at it does anything helps in changing it whatsoever.
You'd have to completely change human condition. that's something you can't. That's impossible. I can't change human condition, how they're going to view, how police view us, how we view police. I mean, you can make steps to change like public opinion about it, but individual opinions, like the police could go around giving everybody like $1 million, and there's still people that think they're full of shit.
I know, but ultimately, if you're going to go about political change, like we talked about this last week, so if the police right now get to a point where their literal existence is threatened, at a certain point, it is in their self-interest to go ahead and accept civilian oversight, to accept reform, to give up that immunity. And so the point is to get public opinion to that place where you take it from where cops have no choice but to act in their own self-interest to accept reform. And we're slowly moving it that way because you see the outrage. If you go the other way, though, and you just try to get everyone to act that the police are the absolute worst individuals that exist on the planet, you're going to get it's cornering somebody that has no action left but to act absolutely violently and try to implement martial law against you in order for civil order.
I mean, you know what a kangaroo court is. Like they have in Lafayette, they have a civilian oversight board. That's if there's an issue with like police discipline, they elect people to do it. The issue is everyone on the board is either privately been a police officer, was probably been a judge or a prosecutor or a lawyer. The deck is stacked. Like
that's the fault of the citizen, though. The board is it has no bias in its structure.
There's an appeal to authority, though. Like people will say, like, "Well, this dude's a judge; he should know better." But this judge was probably the guy that railroaded.
But people get voted to those positions. That's on the fault of the citizen, the individual, for not going around and campaigning for individuals who aren't judges and police officers.
You know, the electorate's morons. Like they're morons. Like they absolutely vote against their self-interest every single time.
But whose fault is that?
Ours,
right? So the only person to blame is yourself. Like me, you. For not going out and saying, listen, sit down with me, for not spreading the message. You can't blame that person for getting elected because they're seen as having authority.
I mean, it's easier to, even if this is true, it's easier for me to teach somebody that's ignorant than to teach somebody something that already has their opinion formulated. Because if they're ignorant, they don't know. If they already have their own opinion, they're going to reinforce that opinion as much as possible due to a confirmation bias.
For sure.
That if I'm talking to like a 12-year-old kid that doesn't know like anything about like politics right now, he'll absorb everything I'm saying. But if I'm trying to talk to like some 35-year-old dude that believes homosexuality is a sin, there's no way I'm going to get him to change that opinion. I can fight tooth and nail, and it's going to be a hard uphill battle. He may change it, but most likely he's not.
But that's like saying we shouldn't do it because it's hard.
It's almost futile.
And we're libertarians. Like that, everything we do is hard. You know what I mean? Man, I know it feels futile, but like the other alternative is to just say the system's screwed. I quit.
I mean, it's the thing is like you're not hitting these hardliners that are already like with their whole cognitive like dissonance. You're hitting these people that don't know. You're hitting like that's why libertarians are more popular with younger people because it's a new idea for younger people. You're not going to convince some Reaganite that has been around forever to change his opinion. He's got that solidified. You're not going to change a fundamentalist Christian's opinion over like same-sex marriage.
No doubt.
But you can teach younger people that haven't formulated opinions that are still kind of grasping at ideas. That's where it comes into play. But that's the issue with the voting electorate. A lot of people that vote are not young people voting based on what their ideas are. It's a lot of people that have been voting the same way, the same methods. They're like the same exact people that appeal to authority every single time.
They have a relationship with the party.
Years.
The party can count on them getting out. And I get all that, but like I guess my point is like, so it's got to be solution oriented. So like you look at this, you look at Baltimore and you say what can be done. Well, clearly there has to be reform in what the protocols and the how we allow the police to act and interacting with citizens.
But that's already been skewed. Like they skewed it by showing the riots as they are.
I agree.
So like every thread I can see, there's people in Baltimore, Maryland right now that are just like straight up being like they're a bunch of thugs. Like so it doesn't matter what the police are. Like the police could literally gun down hundreds of people and that's wrong. But there will be people, hundreds of people that will back them up. It's just like that, like the gay bakery thing we had.
Yeah, but why are we worried about the people that have their ideas set? I mean, it goes back to Jesus' line of don't cast your pearls before swine. I mean, pearls of wisdom don't belong in front of pigs. And that's not a cop reference. That is, you don't feed your table scraps to the dog. That whole idea of the sinners, the salvageable, and the saints. There are the saints, the people that listen to this podcast, that believe everything that we believe. There's the sinners, the people that are just never going to change their point of view. And then there's the salvageables. And we've talked about this in our Facebook discussions. When you're talking to people on Facebook, and you're arguing back and forth with the sinner and you're the saint, it's the salvageables that are not going to comment on your status, that are reading your comments and their comments, and they're seeing that, oh, gee, you have like thoughtful points of view, and they don't. They are just spouting off Fox News talking points, and that's how you can change minds.
But it's exceptionally hard because how the media portrays a lot of different things and how people have cemented their ideas for the last like 20, 30 years.
Yeah, but you're putting way. Sorry to cut you off, but you're putting way too much stock in the modern media in this day and age. I think we're heading towards a point in time where what your friends say on Facebook is going to be just as valuable as what Walter Cronkite would say 40 years ago.
I mean, you know what I'm getting at? You know, it's the old school James Nease boomer hate.
I know. I'm with you, man.
It's like, man, it's like this generation that's so solidified in their way that it's like they have to go. Like, they have to go at all day.
Yeah,
I'm not saying there's a final solution for them, but...
There was a Gallup poll, or I saw it on Reason. This is April 30th. And in the millennial generation, 1/3 identify as libertarian, and in the boomer generation, 1/8 identify as libertarian. So, we're making headway, and so don't tell me there's a two-party system when we've got a third of the people being totally unrepresented by the political system.
They just don't participate, period.
Right, because they have no voice. That's why we'll talk about Bernie Sanders, but that's why somebody like Bernie Sanders can do well. It's because you don't feel like he's lying to you. He is just being flat out honest. Now, his ideas are awful, but he's being honest and telling you the truth, and that's why, people loved Ron Paul. That's why people like me have a problem with Rand Paul. It's because I don't know if I really trust the guy. I don't know if push comes to shove and he
Rand
gets...
bands?
I do.
You got the Rand bands?
He's got the Rand bands. I got myself a Rand Paul towel. So
Rand Paul's trying to do a essential balancing act that he wants to do because he wants to win. Like everybody wants to win, So he's doing I don't know why there's so many GOP contenders. There's like no Democratic. So it's like everybody in the sun. That's just like.
But that's not how you earn a millennial's trust. That's for sure. And on the flip side of the cop argument, and going back to incentives, and if you push them up against a wall, you're going to get martial law. By the same token, you have created an environment, government, the state, local police, local authorities, local judges, local politicians, state up to federal. You've created an environment where there are many, many, many people in this country who feel that their backs are against a wall, that they are without options, and that protesting in the streets, knowing full well that it may bring out the hoodlums that are going to go out there and, nothing changes minds like burning down a CVS and looting the local Kmart or whatever.
Getting some jerky.
Right. But, those people are going to do nothing but harm the people who have a legitimate beef. And it makes it harder. And this is what we always argue with Maya. We invited Maya, but Maya bailed on tonight's discussion. It always makes it harder for the people like me who are saying nonviolence, get the message out. If there is violent extremist or property damage or rioting or all this, and Maya's point is, well, you wouldn't get the press attention if it weren't for the people like me.
Not true, because that's like saying Gandhi would have never gotten noticed because he didn't destroy buildings. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's like Christianity wouldn't be here if civil disobedience didn't work.
I mean, like for Gandhi, the issue with Gandhi is like he's a cult of personality where like he's out there. Like, you can recognize a lot of Gandhi did, but a lot of the changes were actually happened through violence through India. Like there was a lot of things leading up to it and after what he did that kind of led to the freedom of India. Like the revolution was a violent revolution. The French Revolution was a violent revolution.
The French Revolution definitely was, and it's debatable whether that was a good revolution or a bad revolution.
I mean, that was more. That revolution was.
I don't think that produced a whole lot more liberty than before.
There's a lot of different factions and personalities that want to kind of vie. There was the whole let me be in charge and make this cult of religious atheists or whatever, and they try to get the whole thing done. The reign of terror, and that's just people fighting for authority. Constant. That's the issue with anarchy. Is like
that's the issue with revolutions. Period. Is is the devil you don't know worse than the devil you know?
He's like, hey, babe, I'm here. I was like, I'm ready to wreck this.
Yeah.
But, I understand that, like, the rioting is, like, there's not really much option. Like, what option do they have? Like, if you exhaust the legal channel says...
Legal doesn't work.
You're garbage. Don't come in here.
Legal isn't going to work. I mean, you can either try to change people's opinion, and I know it's tough with the media, and you try to create political change that happens at the ground level, get the right people elected to the right boards, which is very difficult to do as well. Or you try to change the narrative, and you put... Yes, any revolution is going to need the rabid dog. Like Martin Luther King needed... The people that he couldn't control, or he claimed he could not control, really he used them as puppets for the damage, the destruction, the chaos, and he used them as a threat. But you have to have that person out front that is seen as totally rational, making great points, well-spoken, smart, and is a representative of the best within all of us. It's not like it's just one person you have to have. You have to have multiple factions, because if you don't have those people that are the destructive forces, there's no threat behind it.
Well, and who's that guy for the civil rights? Let's not even just talk about black civil rights and black men being killed and Black Lives Matter. Let's talk about all of civil rights. I mean, is it Edward Snowden? Is he like it's certainly not Al Sharpton. He's not a credible person.
They don't have proper representation.
Who's they, Greg?
Anyone that is trying to reform the system does not have proper representation right now.
No, without a doubt.
I mean, who would you point to? Like, Gary Johnson is about as good of an individual as you could point to that is trying to usher in wants to reform a whole lot of the system, and yet Gary Johnson isn't taken serious by the establishment
because he can't reform the system even through the establishment. The way the system's set up is almost you're designed to fail no matter what. Like comparative to European systems that are
parliamentary,
There's a lot more accountability in a parliamentary system. You don't like how this prime minister is doing, you can have a vote of no confidence. If you're a party that's like the UKIP party or like the Labour Party, you can form coalitions. You don't have to sit there and try to run on your own with your own voice. You can slice up the coalition as much as you want to get your voice heard. And what we have here is essentially this system that keeps people in there for as long as possible to make the same. It's almost like an oligarchy at this point.
There are no doubt, and especially that Princeton study. I don't know if you saw,
it's like there's.
But so the parliamentary system allows for faster change, no doubt, and like we have a structural disadvantage in trying to accomplish any sort of political reform.
I would say our structure was made the way our structure was because the only people that could vote back when whatever the American Revolution was. Is the only people that could vote were wealthy landowners, and our system is kind of set up to kind of be how that was set up. It's like the people that could vote are the senators that were the landowners. They did these compromises with the representation to kind of appease some people. But
and our federal government was tiny then, and it had to be ratified by states governments.
It grew.
Oh no, that's the issue. Is it grew? But I mean, if like at the beginning, the federal government was never designed to do much more than protect basically. To administer the Bill of Rights, and then in the event of war, to organize and put up a homeland defense. It devolved way worse into that, but that was the intent.
It took Thomas Jefferson 2 years to break every single thing he wrote down.
Well, no kidding.
2 years. That's all it takes. Buying land without Congress approval.
And he wrestled with that. That bothered him more than any. I mean, that's why he doesn't have on his tombstone President of the United States. I mean, he was not proud of his presidency.
The Sedition Acts. I mean, what did he do?
That was Adams. He authored the Kentucky-Virginia Resolution in opposition to the Sedition Acts because that's on his tombstone. So he's
proud of that. It's
I would be too. That created the basis for nullification that otherwise it wouldn't exist. Him and Madison we couldn't use nullification if they hadn't authored that resolution. So, but whether that's even viable, you have the Supremacy Clause that says that the federal law supersedes everything. And so I agree with you on nearly everything, but I have the hardest time just saying we don't have any way forward.
Yeah.
That is so tough to swallow.
Just accept the nihilism that overtakes you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Isn't that hard for you guys to swallow?
He's a philosophy major. Okay,
you're doomed, bro. You're gonna go to the void.
I know. Yeah,
Nitschke all day.
Nitschke,
my bro Nitschke. Man.
Yeah, I mean, there's no hope. Kill yourself, brah.
Yeah, you're just on here until you spiral into the sun and escape into molecular destruction, bro.
That's true. Am I even here?
Yeah, yeah. But it brings a point, like, you know, why not have like a nihilist outlook for how things are? Because we tried so long to get certain changes to go through, and what we're getting is appeasement. Like, even the Civil Rights Act of 1964, that was appeasement. You know, it's just like, well, they're getting a little too uppity. We better let them, you know.
Did you just say that?
That's how they thought.
You think so?
Yeah, like they're getting
Because there was strong opposition to the Civil Rights Act.
Expressed by James Nease on this program are those of James Nease and his employer.
I see, like, so we're libertarians, and we haven't been advocating change for a real long time. I mean, the party started in what, 80 or 79?
And it's mostly just been bitching about problems ever since.
And it's just now being like, even people actually kind of know what it is within 30 years. Mm-hmm. Like, I kind of feel like it's there's headway being made. Mm-hmm. I mean, I battle that nihilist view. I mean, I get it because you're right. I agree with you on the two-party system.
They've got this 18-state. What's this thing where they're coming in?
State convention?
No, where the federal government's going to impose martial law
Helm.
in Texas. Yes, Jade Helm, where we're all going to die. They're fitting you for a FEMA camp suit right now, James. Okay? And if you don't buy into it, you're not a real libertarian. All right?
Yeah. Those Walmart stores closed. Definitely a false flag. False
I'm
flag.
saying it's a false flag. And it's time that we have a real conversation in this nation about what Barack Hussein Obama is up to.
He's obviously Illuminati. I mean, that's what I hear on the forums.
With his best buddy, Jay-Z and Beyonce, as they go out there and flash the Illuminati sign. Right, and Lady Gaga's another one of them. Tyga is almost certainly in the Illuminati.
I tried to join the Illuminati, but they told me, like, I just ain't got the swag.
You don't have that Illuminati swag, bro. You don't have that Mason swag.
Yeah, but you have that 1990 sedan that you can pull up in, that Mercedes, that Saddam Hussein.
We need to get you a gold pair of aviators with like green lenses and a big old cigar and a Saddam hat.
I think like a couple more years, I could definitely get into Illuminati. I mean, I'm not saying like I'll be the president of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at least maybe like VP of acquisitions,
social chair,
VP of acquisitions. You know, it's like, hey, we're taking over your house. Why? Because lizard people. But but you know, even back to the point with like why not be nihilist about it? How long did it take women to be a standardized human as everyone else? Like,
have they really achieved that yet? I mean, you've been on 4chan. I mean, it's pretty awful.
No, but you know, I mean, if it.
I'm not just talking about the right to vote. I'm talking about from like the dawn of time until recently, they were used, women for millennia were just used basically as like walking baby factories to cook bread. That was all they worked in a lot of cultures and a lot of societies. And how long did it take them to break that? Like millennia. Even now, it's like there's points like, you're a woman, you're walking down the street, like you kind of have to be on edge. I mean, just who knows? Some guy's going to be like sexually aggressive. There's a study that some woman put on like a facial mask and kind of was dancing around Las Vegas, and people went up to her in aggressive manners, constantly knocking her down, like slut, whatever. That's how we still are today. It's like even though they made all this progress, so many people still see women as less than human. So many people today still see black people as less than human. So what's the point? Well,
the point is in that comparison is that. For me, there's the feminist movement and then the push for equal rights was something that there very much was by males, perceived superiority. Almost any way possible, they are going to prevent that way forward. With this, we're seeing it. You see it with the surveillance state. That is something every citizen agrees on. No citizen disagrees on that except our leaders. You see it with the police brutality. That's starting to change. That tide is starting to change. How will it materialize in reforms? We don't know. I can't say it's going to be great, and I can't say it's going to be fast, but it's not going to be millennia. Because if you look at places like Keene, New Hampshire, where they talk to the police, they get people to quit the force. I mean, it can happen. We just haven't figured a way for it to scale, in my opinion, or our most effective pitch.
I mean, it's the voice of like a few against basically something that's sanctioned by the state.
But I think it's growing, don't you? I mean, how often Mike Brown had more supporters, and the media and celebrity culture airs on the side of the victim right now. So, like, remember the basketball team that had the Mike Brown sneakers, the Cleveland Cavaliers, like that permeates down through a culture, and I just don't see it being. I mean, if it's feminism and it's the rise. And then I'm joining you, and I'm like, this is all stupid, and I'm done. But in this,
like, if we can stop the police state, we're good. But if we let those women get a little too uppity, like, I swear, man.
No, what I mean is, like, that's such a long and arduous battle. It's amazing they've done it. Because they have had every single element has been against them in every part of their lives in order to achieve, quote-unquote equality. But in this scenario, I just see it so much more as the public opinion is already on our side. We have to figure out the right way to attack the structure and the hierarchy, and we're slowly... eventually, public opinion rules all.
Right.
Because if it's popular for politicians to raise money and run on, then you can damn well guarantee that we are going to have political reform.
And that was sort of the point. It is about all of this, and it really spells it out in this documentary, again, on Netflix, called The House I Live In, by one of the Jarecki brothers. Jarecki, his brother Andrew, did the Robert Durst documentary that just came out on HBO. This is Emil Jarecki. I'm not sure what his first name is, but brilliant documentary makers, both of them. And they talk about the media creates this environment where it is okay to discriminate against and say awful things about and talk down to felons and criminals and people that have sold or bought or taken drugs. And in a country where most of the people alive and definitely all of the people listening to this podcast have tried drugs, and yet they don't think it's okay for their neighbor to do it. And that if they get busted, they should go to jail for a long time because they're a menace to society. Maybe not their direct neighbor, but that guy down the street.
And like that cutoff, I feel like starts at like 40 to 45.
Right.
Because like if you look at the polling, even people that are 45 to 54, everyone is pro-marijuana. Everyone.
Yeah.
Almost to the number of like 70%, which in this country, like 60% is everyone agrees.
How many people on your Facebook have you heard make the justification in the last 24 hours that, well, this guy got what he deserved getting killed in the police van. Have you seen his rap sheet? So you're saying that you don't care about due process, you don't care about the justice, that he's innocent until proven guilty. He just deserves to die in the back of a truck being rambled around and breaking his neck.
They're profoundly un-American.
Yeah.
They are profoundly un-American.
It is so un-American.
Unlike, Hacksaw Jim Duggar. Like,
no, what I'm saying, if you want to use nationalism as a tool, then do it and at least know what the hell you're talking about.
Well, a lot of people are like, dude, like, I keep saying this, man, they're stupid. Like, they really are stupid. Like, they're so, not stupid as in they can't know, but they're stupid as in a way that whatever they believe, they're going to solidify that belief. There's no exchange of information with a lot of people. Like,
it's an information silo. They never leave it.
That's what makes them stupid. They don't learn. They don't read it. They don't understand the concept. It's what they believe, and what they believe is going to trump any logic, any sort of like evidence or anything you bring to the table because that's what they believe. And it's a culture America's permeated for like decades now. This is what we are as Americans. Like, I believe it. You like it. Either you don't like it, you leave. This whole mentality that's going to come through. And that's through all ages. I can find like an 8-year-old that believes like that. I can find like some 18-year-old that believes like that. That's a certain aspect of our culture that has inhibited a lot of progress because we can't change that aspect. We can only think of ourselves.
I don't disagree with you at all. I just say, for me, it's just impossible to say, I quit, or I don't believe we can make change.
You can make change.
It's not what we're here for, bruh.
I'm not saying you can't make change. I'm just saying, like, and
I'm not saying we can. I'm just saying I personally can't do it.
You take away one poison pill to just replace it with another poison pill. That's kind of how authority works. Just because, like, oh, okay, well, the police won't be bad in this instance anymore doesn't mean they can't be bad in another instance. That doesn't mean like there can't be another issue that's going to bring up that. That's how a state works.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't, in like a bigger discussion is we haven't. It's not that like liberal democracies, the proper federal liberal democracies, the proper governance system for this world. It's the perfect one. We don't know right now. The way we look at government is we have a lot of perverse incentives that promote terrible behavior against citizens. We need thought, and we need to expound, like going back to Aristotle and Plato, the different forms of governance. We need real philosophers to put thought into how can you create
we don't have jobs, dude. This is how philosophers can't there's a drive to get philosophy in high schools and make it like some sort of government art, but even then it's just you can educate as much people as you want, but there's always going to be that cognitive dissonance. You can never get away. That's the psychology of the human condition.
No. Yeah, but I mean, so you even see it in political theory, right? So the rise of fascist Islam. Fascist Islam is probably the most modern political theory there's been prior to, welfare democracy. Rawls was probably the last great political theorist there was, until you have this change of radical Islam. And so
don't forget Sarah Palin, okay?
Well, yeah, but I mean there's communitarianism, that'd be the maybe next thing. But so any philosophy on human what it is to be a good human, or what is to be a good citizen, or what is the proper system for governance that creates people that will have the most freedom in a society. It's been a dead area for quite a while. Eventually that won't be dead. And we need people to think about that, and to think about how can you structure a system where the incentives aren't to harm the people, where the incentives are that the more positive interactions you have in saving someone at a police level, or the more positive interactions you are in how we can get people off the welfare rolls and make the state smaller. And, with elected officials, they have more job security, they win more elections by the better their behavior is. What right incentives can we create within a system so we don't get these perverse systems that snowball and create tyranny over time?
That's hard to do in the U.S.
But it starts in theory. Every idea, every bit of change starts in the theoretical, and then is slowly brought into the application of it.
I like to bring up Europe, and cause you said Islam. Europe's doing a weird trend where they're taking a lot of refugees from a lot of different countries. There's people from Africa that come in, there's people from the Middle East that come in.
Good old colonialism. It's now showing its ugly head.
It's reverse colonialism.
It's to a point that there's some news, and someone slammed the news for this, but it's true that there's small pockets of cultural, groups that isolate themselves from the population, and they try to influence policy to what their cultural ideas were. People from Turkey will move into Paris and try to make Paris law like it was in Turkey.
Yeah.
And you get that issue where it's unless you can kind of broad base a system where everybody can get along equally, that people are going to sit in these cultural groups and try to change things. We might not have that here in America. Maybe it's one place like Dearborn, Michigan, that tries to do that. But there's tons of communities in the South that do that as well. There's backwater, whatever. We ain't allowing gays here. We ain't allowing blacks here. This is the way you are in this 500-person town. These little small pockets of communities reverberate through as people move out of these communities to other cities, and that reverberates with other like-minded people. So it's hard to get a uniform system when you have all these people that are on the fringes of extremes coming together to do this.
And I think that's commentary though on the idea that the system has to be about the lowest common denominator. And so if you go all the way down to the lowest common denominator and you say, all right, what sort of society functions well where people can live completely on their own terms, where they're not infringing on the rights of others or causing harm against others, you're going to arrive at either minarchy or you're going to arrive at voluntarism without a question.
Some people like just to mess with other people. That's some people legitimately like to mess with other people.
Whatever system you're going to talk, that rogue actor, whatever system you're going to design and then in future hopefully try to implement in, has to have some sort of deterrent or protection system or system of remediation for the inevitable harm that's going to happen. Just as the rogue actor in any system is going to cause harm, then the question becomes, how do I make that and rectify the situation with that individual?
It would have to be where there's equal representation within the political structure as much as possible. That's more of a European system, but that backfires as well because when it's representational like that, there's too much representation from one political coalition. You kind of get railroaded. There's no opposition to it,
and that's because there's too much centralized power, right? So it's too much of a centralized top-down
You're trying to
hierarchy.
do like a Swiss.
No, I'm trying to do like basically a confederacy from the ground up. That's like. No, but I mean where the central government has no control. The only control in a confederacy is the control of the federal government over the states, not over the citizens within the states.
I just like how we're talking about like the South being like these Republicans. You're like, well, I think we should use a confederacy. I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it,
No.
Greg.
I mean the confederacy and like the theoretical, or like the political structure term.
I like a commonwealth.
Yeah, commonwealth. So, but I mean the problem is how do you prevent the centralization within any society, so that any change, any overrepresentation isn't misapplied in force over any underrepresented group.
Maybe like the old idea that you should rewrite like entire constitutions every couple of years. Like
Absolutely.
Or it needs to be refunded with like what is current in this situation.
Or ban ban Supreme Court decisions that dictate policy for the next 150 years.
I mean, that's what Liberland's doing. I mean, I'm a citizen of Liberland. Are you a citizen of Liberland?
I'm not yet, only because
What is that? I don't understand.
Because I am free as a motherfucker. Like that's
Alan Combs Liberland? That's a good website.
It's Czech Republic, right?
it's like between the Czech Republic, Turkey, and
It's unclaimed
Bosnia.
or basically like uninhabited land. This guy is taking control over and creating an anarcho-capitalist state. And he's got over what, like 20,000 applications?
Yeah, it's also off the Danube River, and like I'm citizen number like 437.
Really?
So you know I'm pretty much a land baron there, and like
When do you leave?
what?
When do you leave?
I'm gonna go over there next week and just be like, listen, guys, like I'm a forefather here, and if I want slaves, I will have slaves. And like, sorry, Greg, like I'm only libertarian in America, and Liberland, I'm a tyrant. So
Well, why wouldn't you be? You have every incentive
right?
to be.
I'm gonna crush every rebellion like with merciless.
I would bet within a year it's called Niceistan.
Yeah. Sharia law of Nice, dude. I'll be like, you know, there's certain things I don't allow here, and that's, you know, I don't like cardigan sweaters. If I catch you in a cardigan sweater,
To the gallows.
you offend, great leader. I mean, that's
So we should move on to Bernie Sanders now.
All right,
That we
Uncle
seem
Bernie.
That we have fixed all of society's problems.
you beat it to death. I mean, whatever. Give me my medal, like, freedom medal.
Who is Bernie Sanders, and what does he think he's doing?
He's the brother of Colonel Sanders.
Jerry Sanders' uncle.
No, I'll tell you the truth. Is the one thing that really rubs me wrong is he's that typical overeducated socialist that he is.
Like Noam Chomsky.
Yes, well, but he's different than Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky's kind of fringe, like his theoretical system. Bernie Sanders calls himself a socialist, and by his voting record, he would be anything but.
Whatever gets the kids to vote, man.
I guess.
Old Bernie, dude. Just
But Bernie is getting like that's going to be his. So he's not actually a member of any party. He's an independent that caucuses with the Democrats, and he's a member of the Socialists of America, which was sort of like the remnants that formed an association, not a political party, of the United States Socialist Party. And he's not beholden by any of their beliefs, and if you're a socialist, obviously you believe in the government ownership of the means of production, and then that's, you know, democracy, direct democracy or republic or representative democracy, decisions made within these means of production. And he very much doesn't vote in that pattern. So he very much votes in. He's a welfare liberal. He's just a little bit more committed to socialist leaning policies, and more than anything, he's populist. Like that is who he is, and he is independent, and he does believe what he says. But he's refreshing because he's in a state where he is bulletproof and he can do whatever he wants because he's never going to lose an election there. And I think it's interesting that he's going to challenge Hillary Clinton, and he will be a thorn in the side from the left because he does populism, audit the Fed, you know, he's anti the Hillary Clinton form of the Southern democratic values like Bill, where Bill governed like Eisenhower or like Nixon. He governs like a real FDR Democrat.
Right.
And so that's going to be interesting to watch those debates, and he'll be hitting her from the left, and she's going to have to really dance well around any he's going to hit her on every one of her policies. I mean, he's arguably a better competitor than Elizabeth Warren.
Well, he has nothing to lose. You know, his career is over. He's not in the Senate anymore, correct?
Well, I mean, he comes off very statesman.
Right.
You know, he's a smart guy.
Very smart.
He's extremely well educated. I always find it funny when someone that comes from a good background and is smart and goes to great schools ends up, I'm the socialist, let me tell you guys how to live so we can all have equality.
I just want to know, like, if his fundraisers would be like Weekend at Bernie's. You know what I mean? It's just like
they should.
It's like, hey, dude, we'll just come here. But
they send out little Bernie Sanders like dolls, and you carry him around at the bar.
I just think he's just like he's just a Democrat that is just not pandering to a corporate entity.
He is not beholden to the corporate. And if he can if somehow Hillary Clinton just gets decimated by all the negative things that are bound to pop up, she's a Clinton, and he is the only one standing there. You talk about corporate America going to crap down their leg and pour money into anybody in the Republican Party, no matter what. It doesn't matter who they are. They could be the most crazy right wing, Southern Baptist, straight out of the movie Red State. It could be, that could be the nominee. But Bernie Sanders really is anti-corporatist.
It's a shout. He's got a party, dude. Like there's no other way he can really go. I mean, like who are the other Democrat challenges? Just Hillary right now.
Jim Webb,
Martin O'Malley.
Martin O'Malley's probably
he imploded this week because he made the mistake of going back to former Baltimore mayor, former governor of Maryland, and he just showed up and nobody wanted to talk to him because he is largely, a lot of the policies that he implemented are responsible for what is going on there. And so many people in the civil liberties community are very, very anti-O'Malley.
He wasn't we have a listener, Kirk French Jr., who, has filled me in more so about anyone than Martin O'Malley. And he was telling, from what I can gather, he wasn't well liked as a Democrat. He didn't do a good job. And outside of being like young and exciting, and looking the part,
right,
he has no political accomplishments whatsoever, which means he'll probably do extremely well because he's like Barack Obama in that way. Like, when you can't pin anything on anybody and you're young and exciting and a new fresh face, that tends to be the best thing you can have going for you.
That's an issue with any Democratic challenger that's going to come up with Hillary anyway. Is like, for the most part, the Democratic Party's just been a congressional mouthpiece for the Obama administration. Like, it's kind of like whatever he, says, like, hey, I want to pass this health care, dude, then they're going to go along with it. And that's an issue because if you're basing everything you're voting off of and your entire political philosophy off what the executive branch wants to do at their whims, it's like you're going to have to run on that, and that includes all the negatives as well.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And Hillary's toxic. I mean, granted, there's no strong challenger to emerge from the Republican Party. There's no one people are gathering around. Like, Bush has money and no votes and no support. Ted Cruz, he's another one of those parallel Mexicans. And he's the worst kind because he's a parallel Mexican Canadian. Marco Rubio is he's to me, he's the Barack Obama of the Republican Party. You give him a prompter, you give him a big crowd, and he's going to hit a home run. But if he has to go off the record, he's terrible.
Could be that water cup, man.
Oh, remember, he was nervous as can be when it was just him and the American public. And there's no challenger out there. Hillary's greatest political achievement, she was married to Bill. That is her biggest political achievement she's ever made. And the thought that Bill would be influencing the policy and the role and in crafting that agenda is appealing to me because he's actually, he's a smart guy. And he isn't an ideologue. And he's probably got the best, mind for politics of anyone that's ever been involved in politics. But I just don't what would a Hillary Clinton presidency look like?
What does it matter, Greg?
I hope it'd be like a Barbara Boxer, where the reason you have the First Amendment isn't because you could use it. Only educated people allowed to use the First Amendment.
Yeah. You could use 3/5 of the First Amendment.
But that's who the Democrats would have to run if there was nobody else. It's like you have to run these ideologues in the Democratic Party, these speakers and stuff, like people like Pelosi and Boxer,
and they can't win.
It's like these said such crazy things, like you don't deserve the right to have free speech. You don't deserve the right to call yourself a journalist. journalist. If you do it, we'll arrest you. Like, if you have a gun, we'll arrest you because we don't believe in that either. Like, search and seizures, whatever, or the government will do it if we want to. That's their voting policy. Like, you can't have anybody like that run because that's more toxic than Hillary will ever be. It's just like the stuff they've said. Like,
yeah.
But that's the only, ideologues in the party that they can run. I mean, there's Alan Grayson, but
he's not even in.
Yeah, it's like, what's he going to do?
So I mean, I look at it and I look at Bernie Sanders, and you know what? If bare minimum, he's going to come across as a statesman, a serious, intelligent guy, and he is going to run as a populist, and that's going to appeal to a lot of people. If he can avoid coming off as fringe, and if Hillary makes the mistake of not attacking him and taking, whenever you're basically unrivaled favorite, you don't attack the people below you because it makes you look like you're on their level or like that they're an actual threat.
Right.
The problem is, if she doesn't, one, she has no message she can actually. I wouldn't know how she'd even go about crafting a platform.
She'd have to default to gender politics. Like,
that's a real danger. And that is
politics.
A real danger. If she goes down that road, there go the blue dog or the union male Democrats, and they will in droves vote for somebody like a Huckabee or a whoever
Sure.
it is. I mean, I'd be a little bit worried that Hillary isn't as good a bulletproof candidate unless they plan on just running Bill and then Hillary's name shows up on the ballot, which is a real real option.
Like a tag team, like
they'll trot him out for a bunch of public appearances. He'll get all the press, and election day, her name's the one on the ticket.
Man, that says. For someone running on identity politics, that seems like the most antithesis thing she could do. Like,
it is, but no one wants to win, but that woman is obsessed with winning.
Mm-hmm. I think Bernie Sanders...
Yeah, I'd love that.
I think he has the ability to be the left's Ron Paul. Mm-hmm. And I think in 8 years, we could be sitting here looking at libertarians versus progressives, just practically flat-out socialists versus libertarians. Because he has the ability. Because you're left with a void where if you are a young progressive and you put all your stock and hope into Barack Obama, you're incredibly jaded. You're incredibly disillusioned. He's against everything that you ever stood for, except for maybe making some advancements in LGBT rights. But overall, like civil liberties, total disappointment. War, total disappointment. Guantanamo, total disappointment. All these things that the progressive left really, really cared about, and that's why they put him in the White House over Hillary. He has totally let them down, and so I think there's a great disillusionment on the left. And I know that was one of the arguments why we put James on the ballot. There were so many conservative libertarians in the party going, Spengel, why are you putting a mutualist, a left-leaning libertarian, on the ballot in 2012? It's like, because everybody on the left hates Barack Obama, it's time to run to the left and not to the right. Where in 2008, we needed a Bob Barr. We needed more conservative-leaning candidates to pick up the disillusioned Republicans who didn't find a champion in John McCain. And in 2010... where we had the Tea Party rise up. But then by 2012, the Democrats were coming around to people like Rupert, who was the first openly pro-LGBT candidate, saying, let's get government out of marriage, but in the meantime, let's make everybody equal under the law.
To be fair, that 2012 strategy to get all these liberal people to vote, that was such a bluster because it was all did that governor's race. If this was like an off year, like a municipal race, those percentages would have been higher. We probably would have won. If it was like 2013, city races.
But part of the theory, if you're managing a libertarian party, you want to present certain candidates and certain strategies at a time when people are paying attention. Not because it's a matter of winning, because it's a matter of more eyeballs paying attention to you and you can draw more people in. If you want to win races as a libertarian party, you're right. If you want to win hearts and minds and get people to hear the word libertarian, then you run top of ticket races in president. People don't give a shit who their city councilor is. They don't know what a county councilor is. That's where libertarians can win. Advisory township trustee. We have those elected in Indiana. We have small claims court judges elected in Indiana under the Libertarian ticket. We have a mayor. But nobody knows that because they care about the president, the governor, and their senator, and maybe their congressman. Maybe. But probably just governor and because that's all people have the stomach for because it's all bullshit. So we have the potential to have a 4-party system. I mean, a Nader-like Green Party could emerge out of Bernie Sanders, but if Bernie Sanders runs as an independent and not as a Democrat, it won't be as effective because he won't be on the stage next to the thing about Ron Paul that was effective, where Bob Barr and Gary Johnson weren't as effective against McCain and Romney. Ron Paul was effective against McCain and Romney because he was standing next to them in the debates that everybody was watching. But then in that moment, okay, then as the primary season winds down, then people like Bob Barr and Gary Johnson can go on TV and get interviews, where a former candidate doesn't get as many interviews. So
it's a balance. You have to,
I mean, like we have May Day coming up. You can test that out. Like, what was it? At the I think it's Washington Park, or I think it's either Garfield or Washington Park. But there's a May Day gathering. It's going to be like a potluck and a bunch of IWW members.
Explain what May Day is for people not familiar.
May Day is the day the unions went on strike, which is it's a huge labor day for like all the unions, and that includes the IWW, which is a far left union. They have these events every year, and it's interesting to go. You see a lot of different people. A lot of people from the Socialist Party show up. The Green Party shows up. Some Democrats show up. It's just one of the things they do because it's a labor holiday. I always encourage Libertarians to go. I mean, like, there's no reason why you shouldn't go. These are people that don't vote strict 2-party lines anyway. Like, there's no, why not? Like, you're talking to people that have an issue with like the wage stagnation. A lot of Libertarians don't like to address the wage stagnation. I don't understand why.
I mean, you definitely come from, mutualist. You're basically a communist, let's be honest.
I will tear you down like this damn Berlin Wall.
Explain what a mutualist is, because I think we've discussed this on a previous appearance, the one where you showed up 2 hours late for the podcast. But and Creighton and you got into it because he was at the time an anarcho-capitalist and you were a mutualist. And
I mean, like, you just got to do what you do, show up fashionably late, Kanye. But a mutualist is like, it places a lot of emphasis on labor theory of value. For how you're going to work with your economic systems.
You just lost every person listening to this podcast in English, bro.
People, in layman's terms, people are as valuable as capital as the very money that you put into your pocket and should be treated as such as a resource. We have a lot of issues with like the minimum wage issue that a lot of Libertarians don't like to address. To just say it's like, well, minimum wage is horseshit. But we already put the elephant in the room with minimum wage. We already set the minimum wage. It's there. It's not going to go anywhere. Best thing we can do is kind of adjust it so you don't have a bunch of disenfranchised people. I think what hurts liberty more is the fact that there's so many poor people around just because there's nothing they can do for like job opportunities that it causes a lot of other social issues. So if you raise it to $15 an hour, it'll hurt a lot of small businesses, and there's a lot of data that says that that's not true. Like I can read data from Seattle. Seattle's, let's say, that tried that out, the 15 an hour.
I challenge you. We have a super secret Facebook group that we'll post on our Facebook wall, and I'll post it in the show notes for this episode 108. If you want to join that Facebook group, post the articles in there, because I've never heard that, and I'm calling BS on you.
No,
because
that's true. So the problem with empiricism is that, and like the theoretical, is that logically, as an Austrian, I would say that any minimum wage would necessarily hurt the accessibility of labor for someone whose natural value of an hourly wage would not be, that they can't enter the labor market because the value to the market is below entrance. Your point is, when we've measured it in Seattle and in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania where we've raised it, there has been no negative effect on the corresponding counties in relation to the people we've measured it with. Because I know what the studies you're talking about. I read those as well. And I have a really hard time knowing. It's like when you try to measure a system without knowing all the variables.
We can always try it more times. I guess
We
the
can.
thing with, it's
Move your hands. He's got his hands between him and the microphone. It's
I know it's like I'm just listening, but I mean, you can try it in definitely more cities. The issue like I had with the minimum wage is like there's a lot of jobs that are already above minimum wage anyway. There's like factory jobs $12-13 an hour, so there's a lot of people making above minimum wage anywhere. So why not raise it across the board like that? Just to kind of you're giving them a bone. I mean, the only place to make a minimum wage are like McDonald's. Even like like mom and pop stores, like I've made like $10.75 at mom and pop stores back in the day. It's not, no one really pays the minimum wage except corporate entities. Corporate entities are the only thing that's going to charge a minimum wage at most cases. There's going to be variables. There's some people that might not do it. And there's that ad from the Socialist Party, I think, that one time for like minimum wage for like a web developer or something. So there's always anomalies.
Yeah, because they were paying their contractor below what they were advocating for minimum wage.
The people that exploit minimum wage laws the most tend to be the most wealthiest organizations in the actual U.S.
But I mean, exploit's a pretty strong term because you're basically saying that they are underpaying that individual, but yet that individual is willing to accept that wage.
I mean, people need to have their own contracts with it. Like, there's no applicability for people to make contracts. Like I said, with the staffing issue, is like a lot of places that hire will default to a staffing agency to do it. Walmart defaults to a staffing agency. You might not think it does.
No, but why wouldn't you? Of course you would. That's a more efficient use in the labor market.
It cuts out your ability to contract. Like the staffing industry is your voice and your representative. So when CNH,
but you advocate for unions. You don't advocate for individuals' ability to contract.
No, individuals can definitely. I'm not. That's syndicalist thinking. You're talking like commie double speak over here. but a mutualist, you can definitely. If your value of labor, it's all about your labor value. If you want to be in the union, you're fine with the union. If you don't want to be in the union, you're fine. But it's like when you have these companies that set the wages for you, especially with like staffing companies that say, okay, I'm going to negotiate your contract for you. You just have to sign off on the contract. You ultimately get to sign off on it. But like in most of these towns, what option do you have when every single job is being placed by the staffing firm?
Not every single job is going. I mean, it's not like that. It's mercantilism, and they have all the access to the labor in the entire market, or that'd be a monopoly violation.
What's the choice in Tipton? Like Tipton or Rossville or Kirkland, where it's either like the staffing company that's going to place you 30 miles away, or
they may have the majority, but they don't have every job locked up as a provider of labor.
But it's not like, well, I can't get the job at the factory. Let me go be like a system administrator. It's like you can't. Like your only choice in this town is McDonald's or this factory. So what
that can't be anyone's choice, because all you're saying is that I don't have the skill set that qualifies me to go get those jobs.
People don't. Like there's no educational drive in the U.S. to get people to skilled in these jobs. Even if everybody was skilled, there'd be like a labor shortfall for like menial labor. If like everybody was like a doctor or everybody was a lawyer, like who would dig ditches.
Well, there's already a glut of labor in law, and like in doctors, there's already there's disincentives to joining the medical field, especially as a doctor. But if you're talking about like there is unbelievable demand for petroleum engineers, for chemical engineers, for computer science majors. Right now, if you graduate from Stanford with a computer science degree, you don't even have to graduate; you get a 6-figure offer. So I mean, like there's structural differences in the economy. It's not like it's a cyclical thing where there's aggregate demands.
It's all
down.
Location too. Like
but I have a really hard time ever saying like because you're not willing to move or you can't move, it is everyone else's fault and we should demand a higher wage.
I'm not saying it's everybody else's fault. I'm just saying that they should be able to negotiate their own wage above minimum wage.
But
so
just because
because they won't do it, like people just won't do it.
But would you outlaw because no one will do it because the corporations find it more efficient to use staffing companies? You're saying that we should outlaw staffing companies?
Perhaps. I mean, like why would we not outlaw staffing companies?
But isn't that a use of the state?
The use of the state. They already break state rules. It's essentially what they do as a staffing company is to get around corporations' liabilities for essentially.
But I mean, you're advocating for using the state as long as it's for your benefit.
Not for my benefit. I don't use the staffing companies for everybody else's benefit.
So the government already does it, so we should do more of it.
No, I mean you already knocked up the beast. The beast is already there. Like you can't get rid of the beast. That's what I'm saying. It's like a pragmatic view of it. Like there's nothing you can do about it. The minimum wage is there. Like so, if it's already there and it's already not keeping with inflation or whatever, you might as well just increase it. I mean, like what's the worst you can do? Bankrupt some people? Like we bankrupt things all the time.
But that's force.
It's already forced. It's not for. How's it? It's more forced to force that's already applied. It's like saying I already have a knife to your throat. Let me put a second knife there.
But then, where as a libertarian does the point come where you stop the application of it?
I mean, it's not talking as a libertarian. It's me talking as a nihilist. What's the point? Like, it's political nihilism at this point.
So you're like not so much, and I don't mean to be hostile or anything. Just trying to understand, and I really don't mean to be at all. I just so like you're at the point where like your libertarianism doesn't influence you as much as like your nihilistic view of where we are as a society in change.
I mean, I'm being as pragmatic as I can about it. You know what I mean? It's like I understand that being a libertarian says these things philosophically, but then I understand that there's systems in place that there's no matter what I can do, I can't change the outcome of that thing without massive overhauls of anything else. You know?
So that's where, so like what we were talking about earlier, like for me, it's like I'm not ready to quit, but you're like, not quit, but like you're at the point where it's like, listen, my libertarianism is less effective for what I want to advocate for, and my nihilism can create a higher wage. Because ultimately, like a minimum wage, what if, like, for instance, imagine an environment where someone's labor was only worth $2 an hour in a totally free market, uncoerced, and no intervention in the system by the state. Would you still advocate for a minimum wage?
If it was never existed, then there would be no point in advocating it. My issue is right now is like I can't go to anybody like. I can't go to any town where the majority of the people work factory jobs or work, at restaurants, making low amounts of wage. I can't go knocking door to door and be like, one thing I'm going to do is eliminate your minimum wage. That is not going to sell. They're going to get extremely hostile with that.
No doubt.
Because even at the minimum wage, they can't even afford shit. It's like, okay, you make $8.50 an hour, you're driving this 20-year-old Camry, you can't afford your rent half the time.
Or half the time they can't afford a new car to get to work, and so that situation perpetuates.
And I can't just be like, look them in the eye. Like, it's your fault because you're stupid and you can't get a college degree.
No, and I don't. And I know there is that brand of libertarianism, no doubt. There is that person that says, listen, I can't help it, you're dumb, and you can't participate in the labor force. That's a you problem, and that's the fastest way to turn the collective against you and ensure you never get a more free society.
That's prevalent, though. That's prevalent not just the Libertarian Party, but the Republican Party.
Well, it all's in the Republican Party. It's like 90% of that.
But, but my issue is like we already built the beast.
Yes.
The beast is there. You can't get rid of the beast no matter what you do because the collective, the entirety of the population wants this. I mean, there's people that are going to be against it. There's like Libertarians against it, Republicans against it. But anybody that works a job like that wants that.
No doubt.
And
I get, and you do bring another interesting question up, and I'd like to hear what Spangle thinks about this. So, in this situation, the minimum wage, really, it's inflation that's killed minimum wage. If you factor out inflation from the time we instituted it, you're looking at $22 an hour, and then nobody has any issues at all. Inflation's the great killer of minimum wage. But in this scenario, what kind of government system is right? What if instead of any of the social programs and the social systems, there's just a minimum citizen's income that you get as choosing to join this state, and the state's competing for you to be a part of it, as opposed to all these programs and all the feel-good stuff and the social engineering?
If you want to do that, fine, but it has to be a voluntary system. I mean, you have to opt in. My view on cities is buy snowplows. What do I care? If citizens want to get together and pay taxes to buy snowplows and pave roads in Indianapolis, great. But the citizens of Franklin and Frankfurt and Plainfield and Greenwood should not be having to pay for that through state tax dollars or federal tax dollars. If I don't want to live in a place that has taxes, I can go move outside of Indianapolis. And it makes it, I have never really heard or thought about the argument of, what about the people born into that system? But you know what? They can move if they don't like it. The problem it comes in is when it's force. As long as it is a totally voluntary system, you can do that if you'd like. Let's say you want to make Indiana that sort of state where everybody, like in Alaska, where oil profits give every citizen a certain
dividend,
a certain dividend for their existence. Now, obviously, we've not seen a mass. We see people move to Alaska, but it's pretty cold there. The problem is that if you hold yourself out and it becomes successful, then the system collapses in on itself. It's not a sustainable system. That's the problem with the welfare leviathan of any shape or form. No matter how you parse it out, it becomes too... bureaucracy doesn't work in any form that you want to make it.
Could we compromise? I mean,
sure.
Let's say, like, I want the $15 minimum wage. Mm-hmm. And I say, okay, in return for the $15 minimum wage, because this would help people get off welfare, we make across-the-board cuts on welfare, we make across-the-board cuts on taxes. For these companies to pay that new minimum wage, I would cut their corporate taxes by much 30 to 40%. Mm-hmm. So that's the money they get back where the government's not taking it. I'm essentially neutralizing the force. I'm saying, okay, we have to give them $50 an hour because they can't survive on it. But as a return for you doing this, your taxes are going to be lower. We're going to cut some programs out of our bureaucracy. And I think that across the board, that appeases at least most things, right? Like, I'm cutting your taxes as a business owner. I'm saying we don't have to have this huge bloated government doing all these programs for you. And at least the people, like this maelstrom of people, which is the people in Baltimore, which is the people like in Franklin or wherever that's on this economic, maelstroms. And this helps them. And that's what Bernie's probably going to be running on as well, is like this populist, like, hey, dude, there's not a lot of people making like $45,000 a year, but there's a lot of people like slaving away in the McDonald's. And these people are essentially his bread and butter, and he's going to hit on that economic issue. But, you can't just add the minimum wage up there without taking things back and scaling the government back.
I don't know. To me, it just seems like such if you're isolating this one specific idea, it's a symptom. It's not attacking the problem. I mean, we're Andy Horning talks a lot about this, where we're not attacking the root of the problem. We're attacking the symptom of the problem. The problem is that the minimum wage is not too low. It's that the economy that the government has set up through things like the Federal Reserve, through
that's the real
a lot of
killer.
banking, that is the root. And somebody like Bernie Sanders say, the minimum wage, blah blah blah, and that will help him get votes. But at the end of the day, he's trying to attack the root with things like the Federal Reserve and the inflationary policies that they have.
I mean, that's even hard. That's even a harder pill to swallow. It's like in the history of modern nations, there's not been a country that hasn't had a centralized monetary system. I mean, there's from Libya to France to England to China to Japan. There's a centralized monetary system.
Okay, then put the Fed in charge of keeping the money from being inflationary, and get rid of the mandate on the Federal Reserve where they have to keep unemployment low.
That if you strip if you strip the second charter, it's about price stability, and then it operates on a totally different set.
Can we not just return it to the Treasury? If we can just return all that function to the Treasury and redo the Treasury Department,
you cannot.
We can't just end it.
No. There's too many vested interests by global finance in the system as it exists now.
You better tell Creighton. I mean, like...
I'm saying, like, you could try.
I mean...
you could absolutely try, but I'm saying you don't want the world of global finance as your enemy. Look at Russia.
I mean...
all of his plans have absolutely devastated.
Why do you think I'm living in this apartment, okay?
Coke dollars.
Yeah. I could have had a home, but I spoke out against Paul Wolfowitz, and it was all over for them.
Wolfie.
I mean,
heck of a job,
Wolfie.
Wolfie.
You could end it if you redistributed his powers to like an appropriate branch, like the Treasury took.
He's redistributing.
No, I get your point.
I mean, because you're not changing the system, you're just taking a level of bureaucracy out of it, so it's more direct, and that's easier to contain and control, especially when you're trying to introduce policies that's not, introducing policies on its own.
And what's funny is like this discussion's really interesting because we actually this touches on this conversation we had in a Facebook message.
He says inappropriate things to me. He's like, "Hey."
No, but you look at this system and you say the foundational root cause is the Federal Reserve System, central banking, and fractional reserve banking. Taking that out in a fell swoop isn't going to happen. And I would argue, even if we did, it would be so destructive that it would cause such social upheaval that it'd be a negative thing for liberty, for individuals. Preventing a strong man from a situation where you essentially undercut all of central banking and global finance in one swift move, whoa. You're talking about literally martial law being implemented overnight.
But I'm all about compromise. Even
like you are, and that's
2012 is like to compromise on like the women's rights issues. I was like, can we not just make birth control available over the counter, which California just took a step into that because now there's an application you can download on the phone, order your birth control through an app. So like they already took steps for that. It's like, why can't we compromise on issues like this? And it's like, especially with the wage, it's like, why can't we cut a compromise and say this is obviously what a lot of people want? And like, if you're a government, your job is the will of the people. Even as a libertarian, you don't agree with it because it violates a principle. The role of the government is to represent the people. If that's what the people want, it's their function, you know?
Which was what like was such an eye opener for me from that discussion is so like it's what I've talked with Spangle about before is how do we sell a negation? So like the libertarian message is, well, we just don't need that, or we need to get rid of this, or we need to get rid of that, and that scares a lot of people and it turns people off. The left libertarian, and this is what I drew from you because you're a mutualist, but what you are more so than anything is you're pragmatic in the application of mutualism or like pursuing it as a goal, and we talked about minimum wage. We talked about changing the corporate structure, which is where I feel minimum wage really comes from, is when you have shareholder theory of value, that the shareholders are who every CEO answers to. In order to get maximum profits to distribute dividends to the current shareholders, you can't justify raising the wage, especially when you have Wall Street and analysts that put all the pressure in the world on you to hit quarterly earnings. So if you change it from where it's not a public corporation and perhaps it's a LLC or it's a private corporation or however you go about doing that, then that CEO can look long-term and not just be worried about how the heck am I going to meet our earnings statement in the next 3 months. I got an idea. We're going to drop wages across the board.
I mean, that's a lot of S and C corps. That's how they run.
That's what we're talking about.
Like they run any financial decision in a corporation that big is not only from the board of directors, which represent the stockholders. It's multiple things from like investment bankers to all the way through Wall Street, all the way through Main Street. This is what we want because this is where profits are.
This is where we can maximize profit.
And like you have like actuarians, like lines of actuarians that work in the company that you have an entire department that do nothing but crunch numbers from like quantitative years and say, okay, this is where we can cut here to say like this guy gets 2% more on the stock value. And that makes more people buy stocks so we can buy more stuff. So you'll see this. It's always usually in the form of like, well, where you can decrease things. They can't decrease things on like production or purchasing. You know, if it's a lumber company, they're going to get lumber from maybe 4 manufacturers. They're all going to be the same, you know. So you can't cut costs on purchasing agreements. That's already been out. So you can reduce like benefits packages. Oh, 401ks, we'll definitely like, nail that out. Or we'll redo your health care. We'll put it from like instead of United Health over to Anthem. Or then it starts going with wages. Oh, you know, do we really need to pay like people $12 an hour to like shuck steel onto these cars or whatever, or build these things?
Well, that's where the staffing companies come in.
And that's exactly how they get around it. It's like, because if you're employed to the staffing company, not the corporation, they don't have a liability to give you under state law and federal law, like healthcare insurance, 401k.
Those are all provided through the staffing company.
They give you a runaround. So basically, like, your effective wage as a flat $10 an hour is basically worth less than minimum wage compared to what you would get as a benefits package if you were a full-time employee. And then they get around it by saying, oh, you need to work 90 days before you're a full-time employee. You're late like 1 minute once, they won't do it. And they can let you off at any time. You're not a full-time employee. Like, well, okay, you're.
And that's not the fault of the thing. Is that's not the fault of the corporation. The corporation is legally allowed to do it. Mm-hmm. The government creates the system where or the rules within which the corporation operates.
And these staffing companies are some of the fastest growing stocks. It's the fastest growing industry, fastest growing stocks. Flocking investors, just giving them more capital, hire people. You know, it's nothing illegal about it, and
the nature of employment needs to probably change, mm-hmm. because if your expectation is you're going to get your benefits, your 401k, your retirement through your employer, that was all brought about by FDR because they had a restriction on wages during the run up in the Great Depression, World War II, so they had to start offering benefits. Otherwise, we'd never have this system where your employment's tied to the corporation, your health insurance tied to the corporation. If we had never instituted a wage ceiling, then everyone would have been in charge of their own.
It's almost like cringeworthy when I can look at these. You know, like every city has like their own like yard sale group. You know, it's like, oh, join our sales, whatever. There's always like someone that posts like day to day. It's just like, hey, I need a job, and it gets full of like NTK is hiring, Aurora Parts is hiring, like all these factories, like $10 an hour. And there's always a person like, damn, $10 an hour is a lot of wage. And I'm like, I'm laughing at that. I'm like, you really think $10 an hour is a lot?
Yeah, but when your wage is $0 an hour, of course it is.
I mean, of course, but it's just like, even at $10 an hour, okay, you get it's like 363, like 400, like at the end of the week after tax. You get taxed so much because of that.
I want to ask you, because you're a computer nerd, I imagine you're familiar with the singularity, correct?
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the singularity. Computing power eventually reaches the human brain. Your average $1,000 Mac computer in 40 years reaches... Fine machine. Great machine. Love it. In 20 years reaches the capacity of all human brains. And at some point, robotics become the name of the game. I mean, and some tech people anticipate 50% unemployment. Because what skills do people functionally have, and it's just cheaper for a corporation to hire a robot.
I told Greg, it's like security, human security goes up. It is a lot easier for me to steal from a robot than it is for me to steal from you. Like,
okay.
Let's say like this computer was like self-aware and this was like a security system, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do tech. I know every computer system has flaws, either programming flaw, hardware flaw, whatever. Your only flaw is like you might fall asleep. You know,
that is my only.
So
flaw.
like,
You're right. Thank you.
Humans are very alert. Humans are very, they can watch multiple things. A computer can only function for what you can program it to function with.
Mm-hmm.
So like whatever this like AI's function is, it's programmed to say, okay, like you're a guard robot. So you pace between point A to point B to point C back to point A. If there's any irregularities to the programming, then you report it, sound off an alarm. But if I knew that, if I knew like this robot that here at this McDonald's that guards the cash register goes from point A to point B to point C, and I know how it works with like a logarithmic pattern, I can override that, rob the entire store, and
okay,
I'm done. Like it's.
But what happens when the computer has the ability to program itself?
When I was a program, I guess like I'm calling Sarah Connor, dude. Like, but even if they do program themselves, it's like there's a lot of flaws that are in machines, even in self-aware machines that humans don't have. EMPs, even if they guard against EMPs, there's certain like solar flares can function in a different way that can mess up machines. Grounding can mess up machines. Programming faults, even
power surge.
Yeah, even programming over time, like it creates like a redundancy. If it has a redundancy over it, would just end up crashing anyway. So even if you increase technology, you're just increasing the security for human security. You're increasing like tech things. So you're shifting the job labor market from here to here. It's like hundreds of years ago, we had people with like pickaxes, like slamming rocks to get coal out. But now we have machines to do that. But what do we have instead? All these people that were slamming rocks are now driving these machines. Mm-hmm. So did we lose any jobs? Some people say, yeah, we lost these like coal miner jobs. Like, no, they just transitioned to other things.
So even as computers become self-aware and self-programming, human beings will adapt and will still maintain their mastership over machines, because the labor market will evolve. That human labor, human capital, will always find a way to outmaneuver machines because
until they're self-aware.
We're more perfect beings. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, if any machine comes for me, dude, like all I know is like whatever, dude. Like I'm gonna blow it up. Like,
yes.
All right. Well,
that is the legitimate Sarah Connor answer.
All right. I think that's about it.
That's how we should end it.
That's it. We can't get better than that.
No.
James Nease, always a pleasure. Please don't make it like another 50 episodes before you come back.
Yes, please do not.
So we like to wrap up. You get a chance to talk about something that you didn't get a chance to talk about, something that you'd like to talk about. Go ahead. What do you want to say to the people?
I just want people to know, like, I got this sick Mercedes. Sick. You should see the photos of it online because it's a straight Saddam Hussein, like, ghetto blasting ride. And
you can. I was posting photos to our Instagram account. Go to WeAreLibertarians.com. You connect to the Instagram. We Are Libertarians is the Instagram.
And I encourage people to go get their IT degrees and certifications because, oh, my God, dude, that job market's booming. Like, seriously, there's like... Indeed, is like hundreds of those things. Like, if we don't have enough people to fill out, we have like 20 positions open.
We had several people really inspired to join Linda, who turned us down for an affiliate sponsorship account.
So I said Udemy.
Thanks, Linda.
I said Udemy
so
the whole time.
Everybody go check out Coursera or Udemy. or Code Academy, but not lynda.com. No, still
LinkedIn bottom.
LinkedIn bottom. They sold out, man.
Their shares dropped 25% today, by the way.
The other thing that we got a lot of questions, and maybe you can help us answer this, James, from people. How do I help my kids learn to code? And there are some great apps out there. I wish I had them up in front of me, but you can find a list. If you just Google apps that help my kids code and you put that into the Google machine, it will spit out some answers. Minecraft is obviously a great thing, too.
I mean, if like you're like a normal cool parent, you want your kid to code, you could probably start them off with like Active Perl and then get like Perl programs, tutorials, how to do like plug A to B to C to make arrays. If you're like a super like hardcore Asian dad where it's like, if my kid doesn't get straight A's, you could probably start them off in C++ and be like object-oriented or nothing.
None of that made sense to anybody who was listening. We're user-friendly here. Layman's.
You can... the best way to learn is to dive in, to be honest. Like, you can have all the like apps you want, but unless you can like actually understand the mathematics of it. I would say if you want your kid to learn to code anything beyond simple like JavaScript, you should probably like teach your kid how to do math. Like, I guarantee if they do not know how to do math, they're not going to do well in coding. So you can't be like, my kid's like, oh, he can do some JavaScript, but you got a D- in algebra. It's like that kid is going to be working at McDonald's and be one of the issues that I'm talking about all the time.
No comment. F you.
You work at Bob. If you get at least a C in math, you work at Bob and Tom.
You better be funny as hell.
I mean, not even like Stucker and Steve on the weekend stuff on the other channels, Bob and Tom.
Now, all right, so Coursera, Udemy, Learner.com, Code Academy, Code School, any of that. Check it out. See if they got something for you or your kids. Check it out. Take Nease's advice. Greg?
All I was going to say was the Supreme Court heard arguments yesterday about the state's ability to ban gay marriage and whether or not states had to recognize the gay marriage. And so it's going to be an interesting decision. I would guess, if I had to guess, I would say, I just have a feeling this court's going to come down 5-4 and we're going to see the states getting to decide it and states not having to recognize homosexual marriage if they have to move for work or something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I feel that way, but I just do. This is one of those times where I'm a bit conflicted that I feel like we need a federal level definition of marriage act, just so we can clarify the equal protection clause, maybe, because it's clearly getting its butt kicked. I'd love to see it where it's just human and human. And the real scary part is Alito brought up the question of, what if 4 highly educated attorneys decided they wanted to get married? That posed quite the issue for the Solicitor General, and that kind of told me that the way the court was leaning was we're going to see it where states get a pick. So watch out for that.
I mean, well, it's like, like, I want 20 wives and a goat, dude. Like, I'm going to old school, like, Syria on this.
Well, the goats can't sign the contract, so they're out.
You think I can't make
They can be part of the dowry, but they can't actually enter into the contract.
You think I can't make them sign?
No, but I'd say to keep an eye on that, because I'd say if this goes to the states and this is settled U.S. law, my God, we're talking about a long time before we get civil unions or gay marriage in the United States on all 50 states.
All right, for mine...
Never get that piece. Nope.
So you were dressed, James Nease, in a skull cap, gray skull cap, a vest. You've got a nice flannel shirt on with an undershirt, gray undershirt, very hipster-esque. Tight jeans, I presume. I didn't look at your jeans.
I'm wearing Dockers.
Dockers. Okay, well, I'm wearing tie-dyes and gym shorts. Greg, describe what you're wearing.
Do I have to?
You have to, yeah. My wrap-up is all about you.
So I did this to troll. So I've been called a frat boy 3 times in a week. So I was called a frat boy first by you last Thursday.
Right.
I was then called a frat boy by chicks on the right, which screw you guys and I hope you all die. Both, not all. And then I was called a frat boy by you in the chat. And so I said, Spangle, watch out. I'm going full on frat boy. So I have.
That's not Keystone White.
Well, I was gonna bring PBR.
No, he's got Two Hearted Ale,
Bale's
which
Two
is
Hearted.
hipster beer.
Sort, yeah. But so I have a Seersucker Kentucky Derby Vineyard Vines hat on. I have on a pastel pink button-up shirt. I have on a Nautica pull over specifically for sailing because it's something about wicking water away, and then navy blue shorts, and then Sperry's. So I came fully fratted
No
out for
socks.
you. No,
No
of course
socks.
not.
You know,
Never socks.
Somebody that doesn't dress like that would have to go out and buy that, but I'm pretty sure you just picked that out the front of your closet, dude.
Right.
No, it wasn't
Right?
the front.
Like, he
It
wears
wasn't the front.
this.
I actually had to wash it because, and it's not because it was dirty. It's because like I haven't worn it in so long. I was like, I better wash this.
It's been 2 weeks since I wore like this.
Well, 3.
You never trust a man who doesn't wear socks, honestly. So a friend recommended Lara bars, which happen to be, I have the chocolate chip cookie dough here. They're gluten-free, non-GMO, vegan, dairy-free, kosher, and made with fair trade certified chocolate.
Halal?
These, what did you say?
Yes.
Are they halal?
What does that
Hello.
mean? What does that mean?
Like Amir Rothschild.
Right, I know, but listeners don't know that.
Oh, like is it approved for Muslims?
I don't know. I don't know, but this is chocolate chip cookie dough. It tastes like, here. You got to put this in your mouth. Just the tip. Try it. Here, you want some? Want to check this out. All right, what do you think? Fair trade, vegan, non-GMO.
You know what I like about it? It's not real sweet.
You know what I like
Yeah.
about it?
It tastes like chocolate chip cookie
Infidel
dough.
garbage. It's not halal.
I feel like I just ate pork as a Muslim. No, but that's actually solid.
It's made of dates and cashews.
It's not, but it's like it doesn't have that like overwhelming sweetness.
No.
That is good. You know what? Hey, I applaud you.
Listen, here. I'll take one with you. Take the box
No, I'm
with
not
you.
gonna take it with me, but I'll buy some.
right.
Those are way better than like granola bars.
I know. See?
Wow,
All right.
interesting.
That's the last time you make fun of me for my gluten-free, non-GMO, vegan, dairy-free, kosher.
Although, can we take a picture of your spice rack? Even Nease brought it up.
Niece is like, I have nothing but organic spices. I have
Montreal steak. Organic.
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 You know how many Thai kids had to die to make that?
he made fun of my organic canola oil.
He did.
Oh, nice sriracha, bro.
Oh,
Rolling in
man.
here with a 44-ounce Coke from Speedway.
Yeah, right.
That's
How
American.
hipster is that? Although Irvington isn't hipster.
What?
It was like way before. Like Irvington predates hipsterism by like years.
All right, well, that is enough of this. We had quite a show.
No, I love it.
Hey, bro.
We love having you on, James. Glad you could be here. That was quite a ride you gave us, James. All right, thank you for joining us here on We Are Libertarians for this week. And as always, we promise
To do better next time.
music for We Are Libertarians is provided by Hoosier musician Brian Keith Wallen. Please check out his website, briankeithwallen.com. The song is Bad Spell.